and it's a long weekend and maybe people are busy and maybe joining a little late. Anyway, I hope we'll have a good 3-hour session where I will learn as much as you will as well. Let's work together and make it interesting and worthwhile. Okay, so before we get started, just a brief introduction about myself. My name is Thiagarajan, and I am an adjunct faculty at Dayananda Sagar University. And more than that, primarily, I am an entrepreneur myself. I have started a couple of businesses, and the one that I'm running right now is called Tripure. It is a corporate travel software company. So we are creating a software solution that takes care of all aspects of corporate travel, and we sell the software to companies, corporates, and especially medium to large companies. So we have a lot of customers ranging from Siemens, Stellantis, Udan, Misho, LiveSpace, and so on. So many customers. We're doing reasonably well. And it's been a very fulfilling journey as well as an entrepreneur. So I used to work in software industry. I worked for many companies like Motorola, Qualcomm, Mobilium, and so on. So as an employee, I have worked for many companies of different sizes. But being an entrepreneur has been extremely fulfilling, even though not so much monetarily, but I would say from job satisfaction wise, it's just a phenomenal experience. And just to complete my introduction, before my, let's say, working career, I have an educational background in computer science. I've done my bachelor's in computer science from BITS Pilani, and my master's also in computer science from Kansas State University in the US. And after that, I also worked in a bunch of companies in Silicon Valley before returning to India and starting my second working career here. So with that introduction, today's focus is going to be all about entrepreneurship. And I know this workshop is part of the Jade-Krishnamurthy entrepreneurship program that is being run by Dayananda Sagar University. And so what I hope to do is two things out of this whole, let's say, workshop. First is to get you all a flavor of entrepreneurship, because I know, all of you are students and you are curious about entrepreneurship. You want to give it a hand. And so you need to know what it's all about and why is it exciting, what you can get out of it, and so on. That's one. And second thing is, once we have that basic principle established, then the real focus of this workshop is going to be about business model. So we'll talk about what is a business model, why is it important, where does it fit in an entrepreneur's journey, and how do you put together a business model using this tool called Business Model Canvas. So I'll share some, the basics, some examples. We'll take some successful companies as examples. I'll walk you through how they would do it if they were to do it today. And after that, time permitting, we can take a couple of examples ourselves and start working on it, live, if you will. We'll pick a company based on your feedback, and we'll pick a company and actually go through this whole exercise ourselves, so that it'll be not just theoretical, but you will also get an idea of how to apply it for your own businesses as you embark on this entrepreneurial journey. Okay, so without much further ado, let me share my screen and start our lecture today. Okay. So I had used these slides as part of a course. So the flow is based on that. So I had taken away some slides. Anyway, so let's get started. The first thing, as I mentioned, I want to cover is just to get an idea of the journey of an entrepreneur. So what is it that we mean when we say I'm an entrepreneur, right? First of all, entrepreneur is someone who essentially creates something out of nothing. So it all starts with a thought, an idea, and it grows into an organization, an entity, which actually produces something. It could be a product, it could be a service, it could be anything, and it touches the lives of many different stakeholders, right? It touches the lives of its customers, whether it's companies or consumers. And on the other side, it also touches the lives of its employees. But net, because that entity exists, many people benefit and the overall economy benefits. And from all this, finally, the entrepreneur himself or herself benefits in multiple ways, right? So that's what an entrepreneur is. So uh, if you notice, I strictly avoided making money as an objective or as a definition of an entrepreneur, right? So that happens as a side effect. But an entrepreneur is typically motivated out of changing the world, out of making a difference in the world by using a corporation or enterprise as the means. You can make a difference in the world using many ways, right? If you're a sports person, you can make a difference by being a great sports person. If you're a musician, you can create music and change the world. And if you're a politician, you can change the world as well. So there are many ways to change the world. But in the case of an entrepreneur, she creates an organization. She leaves a legacy behind by employing people and by producing value for her customers, right? So that is the uh, focus of an entrepreneur. So why would someone want to be an entrepreneur? Why should we even care about being an entrepreneur? Because most of us, I would say, let's say 90% of the world, whoever is earning any kind of money, is actually working for someone or working for a company or a corporation. That is the most widely accepted and coveted means of making a living for most of us, right? If that is the case, then why would you even think of being an entrepreneur, right? So here is the reason. So by being a worker, by being an employee of a company, you get to actually contribute to the company. You get a fulfilling career. There is nothing wrong in it, nothing less about it. There are many people, most of the people are extremely happy about doing that. And there is a beautiful career path by being an employee as well. You join as an entry level employee, you grow through the ranks, and maybe one day you become the CEO of the company, right? So you take the example of our own, let's say, popular Indians. Take Sundar Pichai, for example, or Satya Nadella. They started out as an employee of a company, and eventually they get to run the company, right? So that's a very, very valid and fulfilling journey as well. So there's nothing wrong in it, nothing different about it. But today we're going to focus on being an entrepreneur. So if you have a lovely career, why would you want to be an entrepreneur, right? So the reason is, I would say, twofold. One is being an entrepreneur gives you a complete freedom, right? You get to do what you think is the right thing to do as far as you're concerned. You get to pick the value proposition, you get to pick the industry, and you get to pick the idea that you want to implement, and you are your own boss. That's a very big thing for uh, an entrepreneur or for any human being, right? Typically, when you're in a corporate career, there's always going to be constraints. The constraint could be you can only do these things, you cannot do these things, and so on. So it's a little bit constrained in a corporate environment. Whereas if you're an entrepreneur, that constraint is gone, right? But obviously, there is also a downside to it. If you're in a corporate career, you don't have to worry about your salary, right? The company will pay you the salary. You just do your, let's say, 40 hours a week of work, and the company will pay you. And you don't need to worry about many aspects of the business. So if you're an engineer, you just worry about creating whatever it is that you're creating, whether it's software or hardware or anything. And you don't need to worry about the sales. You don't need to worry about marketing. You don't need to worry about branding. You don't need to worry about the legal aspect of the company or HR or anything. You just have to worry about your job, and your salary is going to come to you, right? But whereas if you're an entrepreneur, it's just the opposite. You need to worry about everything. So it's not just the freedom that I talked about. It is also the flip side or the other side of it, which is the responsibility, right? So you are now a responsible person, which means you need to take care of your own uh, organization. Because you started it, you need to worry about all aspects that I just mentioned. So that is the other side of being an entrepreneur. But the second key thing about an entrepreneur, apart from the freedom that I talked about, is the fulfillment you get. So my own philosophy is that, if most of you know about Maslow's hierarchy of human needs, starting from the basic physiological needs to psychological needs to all the way up to self-esteem. To me, entrepreneur, being an entrepreneur or entrepreneurship is one of the best things or easiest things that would give you that complete fulfillment in your life. It gives you that achieving that complete self-esteem. That is possible by being an entrepreneur, while it may be difficult to get it in a corporate environment. So it is the fulfillment that you get, it is the satisfaction you get, and it is the wide gamut of experiences that you get. To me, being an entrepreneur is unparalleled compared to any other thing that you can imagine. So, uh, for those of you that are, looking at being an entrepreneur, you've chosen it well. It's an awesome, amazing journey to go through. But be aware of the risks associated with that as well. So if you're being an entrepreneur strictly for money, I want to become a billionaire, I want to become a millionaire, and so on, then, yes, it's valid, it's reasonable. But if that is the only goal you have, then as far as I am concerned, that's probably not going to help you much. But on the other hand, if you have something that you're passionate about, you want to make a change in the world in a particular area that is close to your heart, and you want to really make that difference, and in the process you want to make money as well, that is a better approach as far as I am concerned, right? So please go ahead, enjoy the journey of an entrepreneur, but focus on the actual work, actual difference that you want to make, as opposed to the result that you want to achieve, which would be probably to make money or to make a name for yourself, to become famous and whatnot, right? Focus on the actual work you want to do and the difference that you will make in the world, right? So with that basic introduction, let's now jump into, let's say, the link between what I just said and the real topic of today's workshop, which is the business model canvas, right? So if you're an entrepreneur, then what do you typically do? Most of us have great ideas, right? Most of us have different ideas and brilliant ideas at that, almost every day, right? You see a problem and you feel that I wish this were different. I wish somebody solved this problem. Or better yet, you may feel that, why don't I solve this problem? Why don't I make everybody's life better in this one aspect by doing ABC, right? So that is the genesis of being an entrepreneur, right? So you see a problem and you want to solve it, or you have some new concept and you want to introduce it to the world. It need not be solving an existing problem, but it may be making the lives better. It may be some kind of convenience that you bring to the table. Um, so you can imagine the companies that are solving the problems are, many companies. So you look at Google, they are solving the problem of finding information. Or you look at Netflix, they're solving the problem of getting entertainment wherever you are. They're taking the pain out of it, especially during the pandemic. It was a great godsend for most of us to pass our time. By sitting at home, we could enjoy all the entertainment, right? So these are different companies that solved a particular problem. But there are some companies which are just introducing something new, some new concept, right? So if you look at Bitcoin, for example, it's not solving a problem, but it's a new concept that they have introduced with a cryptocurrency. Or if you look at even SpaceX, they're not solving a problem. It's not like somebody is suffering because they're not able to go to space, but it's something that they want to bring to the world and enrich the lives of their customers, right? So that is the two types of entrepreneurship that you will go through. Now, nevertheless, the first thing, that is the genesis of entrepreneurship, is all about ideas, right? So you need to have an idea and you need to develop on that idea. So if you look at this chart, the very first phase that you would go through as an entrepreneur is ideation and validation. So most of us have, as I said, great ideas, but where most of the ideas fall apart, and I'm sure you can ask yourself, you would have asked yourself, if you had the entrepreneurial bent of mind, that would have, you would have come across many ideas. Your mind would be coming up with many ideas. Every day you may be coming up with multiple ideas, right? But most of them, 99% of them, don't take shape as a company, as an entity, as something that produces something, right? That is because those ideas don't really fructify into a validated idea. So for example, if you're saying, I wish there were a better solution for traffic in Bangalore, right? And why not having flying taxis? It could be the idea, but then it will quickly fall apart, maybe because, first of all, maybe you're not able to validate it in terms of its feasibility, whether this idea is something that can take shape into a proper company. That is something that you may be you may not be able to pass with this kind of a test. Or the second thing is, maybe you have an idea and you know how to convert that into a product or a service, but your customers, whoever you are actually making it for, they may be saying, nah, I don't like this idea, I'm not going to use this, right? So that is, the validation may fall apart there. Or neither of these, maybe it is feasible, maybe the customers will love it, but maybe you don't have the energy in, or you don't have the courage maybe to drop your to quit your current job and start this thing and make it your let's say journey for the next several years. Maybe you don't have the let's say financial capacity and the mental capacity to be able to implement it, right? So whether it's any of these three, I would put all of them under validation. The first validation is the feasibility. Second validation is customer acceptance. And third one is the the entrepreneur's own validation, whether they are cut out for it, whether they want to go through with this particular idea as their journey, right? So this is the first stage that you need to really go through, where you take an idea and you refine the idea and you validate the idea by talking to customers, by doing the feasibility and checking with yourself whether you are going to be able to execute, right? So I believe you would have gone through a workshop on this already, right? So you know now how to take an idea, a very raw, crude idea, and convert it into something that is presentable, something that you have thought through with, and you have much more clarity on what that idea is, right? Once you have this idea and it is validated, the second stage that you would go through is to convert it into a business model, because sometimes the idea may be great, but maybe it won't make you money, or maybe it will require too much money for you to be able to run it as a business, and or maybe it'll make money but it'll never be profitable. You have to spend more than what you will earn, maybe, right? So you need to validate the business aspect of this idea by going through this step called business modeling, right? So in business model, what you would typically worry about, we are going to see this particular thing in detail for the rest of this workshop. So, but the main thing is two key aspects. You need to figure out what the revenue streams are and what the cost structure is going to be, whether it is a viable business. And then as part of this, you will also look at 7 other things. So there are total 9 things that we're going to see about the business model. But this is very important. So what this will give you is, not only have you validated the idea, but now you're able to visualize this idea as a business, and you're able to put a model around it, how you're going to run the business, what do you require, who do you sell it to, how do you reach those customers, how do you make money, and how much cost is involved, who are your partners, right? All these things. You get a complete 360-degree view of how you would go about implementing this idea into a business. So you will be doing a lot of thinking and a lot of, let's say, details you will put in a very structured manner. So this is what we're going to cover in detail in today's workshop, right? And just to complete this whole journey, once you have a business model ready, now this means you're very clear in your head about the idea that you've done in the first step. And now you also know how you will convert this idea into a business and how you're going to make money. So you have much more clarity on this whole idea, right? Once you do this, then you will put together something called business plan, right? So here, whatever modeling you did, modeling is more of a theoretical planning. You're just doing a lot of thinking there. Whereas in business plan, what you're going to do is you're going to now convert that into something like a schedule, something with specific numbers, specific timelines, and specific type of resources, right? So now you're going to give it some shape. So business model is more like an idea which is refined into much more clarity. But business plan is something that is executable, right? It's going to be much more detailed. Using the business plan, you can just go and start the business, because you know exactly what you're going to do, how long it's going to take, how much resources you need, how much money you need, and so on, right? So here you will put together all the aspects that you considered in business model and convert that into a plan, an executable plan. And once you have this plan, then you worry about the fourth step, which is financing. Because a plan can materialize into a business only when you have funding for it. So you go through this analysis of funding requirements and funding plan. Where do I raise money from? And how much money do I need? So you take care of the financing part of it. Maybe in some cases, you don't need to go for external funding, but still you need to really put together a financial plan. Just typically part of the business plan. I have just called it out separately because it is a very important aspect of it, because there are many entrepreneurs who are very capable, who have a brilliant idea, brilliant business model, an amazing business plan, but because of lack of funds, they're not able to convert this plan into a reality. So the financing is very important. But once you have taken care of that, then you go through your actual execution phase. So you launch your company, you go live with your product or service, and then you go through this nice cycle of tweak and iterate, right? So you keep a cycle, whether it's a monthly, quarterly cycle. You just put something out there, see what customers say about it, and then make changes, try version 2, and then experiment, then version 3, then version 4, and so on. So you keep iterating, get better and better and better, and eventually you will make it big as an entrepreneur. So the whole idea behind this one slide that I have as an introductory slide is for all of you to see that being an entrepreneur is not just going ahead and executing, but you need to have some kind of a structure, and you need to spend a lot of time really thinking about your business before you go ahead and launch. There are many entrepreneurs that I know who skip many of these steps, and they just take the idea and they just go launch. They're so excited about the idea. Maybe they talk to a couple of people and they're also excited. They just go and launch without really thinking through what they're getting into, right? And then they are doomed to fail, because if you have not thought about everything before you get into a new venture, the chances are that you will be finding it very difficult to succeed. So this is the basic background, and I hope you understand now where business model fits in. Right? So now let's see what a business model is. So I told you a little bit about it earlier, but now let's get into the real subject matter of this workshop. So what is a business model? What really is a business model? So here is a, let's say, textbook definition. It describes the rationale of how an organization creates, delivers, and captures value, right? So we're not talking about product, service, and whatnot. We're talking about value, because ultimately, if you have to exist as an organization, as a company, then you need to really produce value, right? There has to be some value that you are adding to your customers' lives. Otherwise, you cannot exist, right? So the whole idea behind business model is you focus on that value. What is it that I am adding as a value to my customers? And then you essentially answer these 3 questions, right? How do you create value, which means how do you create your product or service? How do you deliver this product or service, which means it will cover sales and marketing. How do you take your product to your customers? And then third thing is, how do you capture value, which comes to operations, right? So you may have a product, you may have customers, but how do you actually capture this value for the organization itself? How do you make a profit out of it, right? So these are the 3 key things, and we'll focus on the value. So to prepare a business model, I think about 20 years ago, there was a Swiss economist, I think. He came up with this nice canvas, nice, let's say, structure to put a business model together. So for example, if you talk about a business plan, there are many templates out there. There are many ways to do a business plan. But interestingly, to do a business model, this particular thing, business model canvas, has become very, very popular, and it's become a well accepted and time tested way for anyone to be able to put together a business model. Right? So we're going to take that, and that's what we're going to focus on. It consists of 9 blocks. So it'll evolve into a nice shape, but as we go along, you will see what it's all about, right? So let me get into these 9 segments one by one. I'll spend some time explaining what each one is, and then we will apply it with 2-3 companies, and then we'll also take one live example and work on it ourselves. Okay. So the first thing, let me just explain what this business model canvas is. And for those of you that are actually working on being an entrepreneur and maybe competing in this Jade-Krishnamurthy event, I would like you to, spend the next few minutes going through this whole canvas with me, but you start jotting down points about your own business as I describe these things. Essentially, I'm going to ask 9 questions, and I'll be explaining what the question is and how you typically answer it in a generic way. But I'd like you guys to apply it to your own business, whatever idea that you are pursuing. Answer these questions yourself. And believe me, by just answering these 9 questions, you will become much, much clearer in your head about your own idea and how you will convert this into a viable, profitable company. So just please walk through this whole thing with your business at the back of your mind. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to talk about is customer segments, right? So when you have a product or a service, you have that only because you're going to offer it to some customer, right? So let's take a very simple example. Let's say you start a corner, let's say tea shop, which is very common all over India. Right? There are many tea shops, which is, they're in every street corner. So for that guy, the product that he's selling is, let's say, tea, coffee, and maybe some snacks. That is his business. That is what he's starting out with. So before he starts, he needs to really understand which segment of the customers is he actually targeting. It is very, very important, because if you don't understand your customer segment, then you will be in the wrong place at the wrong time. So taking the same tea shop as an example, let's say he's in a regular middle class or lower middle class kind of an environment, a neighborhood. If he goes there and starts a very premium tea shop where tea costs, let's say, 50 rupees, as opposed to any other tea shop where you get it for 10 rupees, then chances are this person is not going to succeed, because for his location, for the business that he is starting, the customer segment, he needs to understand who are the people that will pass through that junction at any point in time. Who are the people, most of the people that will be passing through that junction, who will have a need to have a tea or coffee. So if you don't understand that customer segment, then you will come up with the wrong product, right? So it is very important for you to understand customer segments. So we'll take another example. Let's say you are starting, let's say a school. Maybe school is a too complicated thing. Let's take something very simple. Let's say you're starting a beauty parlor, right? So if you are starting a beauty parlor, then you need to understand, I'm not putting a location to it yet, but before you start something like a beauty parlor, you need to understand which segment of the customers you want to serve, right? So you, for example, you could be a simple salon where neighborhood people will just stop by and get a haircut or facial or whatever, right? That's a very basic, let's say, low end, if you will, of a beauty parlor. But that is, if you are clear about it, then the kind of service that you're offering, the kind of shop that you're setting up, the kind of interior that you're going to set up, the way you will market, everything will change depending on who you are targeting. But on the other hand, if you are targeting, let's say, the movers and shakers of the city, let's say you are in, let's say, Mumbai, and you want to target all the film stars as your segment, you're putting together a beauty parlor targeted at the real sophisticated people where money is not a problem, but they want the best treatment, right? If that is the case, then your approach will be totally different. Then you will be spending a lot of money just to make sure whoever walks in has that sense of luxury as soon as they walk in, right? You will spend a lot of money. And so it is very important for you to really understand it. Maybe the same product, maybe the same coffee that you're selling, maybe the same beauty product that you're selling or beauty service that you're selling. But if you're not clear about your customer segment, or if you're going out with the idea that it'll be a one size fits all, then again, you're not going to do very well. So it's very important for you to understand who your customers are. And in order to segment the customers, typically, you can do some reading about this. There is what marketeers follow, and I'm sure many of you are marketeers as well. They use this thing called socio-economic classes, right? So it's short form is SEC, right? It's a very well understood and well researched kind of segmentation of customers. So if you are targeting the SEC A or B, it'll be like a high-end customers that you're going to be targeting. But if you're going down the let's say hierarchy, you're going to be targeting people who don't have that much of disposable income. So the highest in the hierarchy are the ones that have essentially unlimited disposable income. So money is not a problem for them. They can afford to buy pretty much anything, and they want the best in class as far as the product is concerned. And you can go all the way down to the lowest class of the segmentation, where you will be looking at people that are living hand to mouth. They don't have disposable income. They only can spend on essential items and commodities, right? So you need to know where in the spectrum you are targeting your customers. Where do they stand? That is something that you need to understand. This is from consumer perspective. Now, if you look at corporate perspective, let's say you look at my own company, we are selling the software to companies. We are not targeting the end users. We're not targeting the consumers. So we need to know which kind of companies do we want to sell to. And largely, there are, let's say, 4 types of companies that, in fact, I would say maybe 5 types of companies that exist out there. So you need to know which ones that you're going to target. The lowest one of them is a micro. The micro companies are ones where there's only the owner is running the company. For example, a barber shop is a micro business, or just a basic shops that you see, tea shop, the example that we took. It's like a micro business. That's not like not even a small business. They don't employ people, or they just have some temp staff. It's mainly owner driven micro business, right? And their turnover is very, very less. That is one type. Then you have small businesses where you have some employees, maybe let's say 10 employees that you're employing, up to maybe 100 employees. That is something that you are employing, but your turnover is pretty less. And this definition is also very clear from Indian government's perspective, because if you are a small business, you can just go and register as part of the small business, forget the name. You can just go and register with the government as well. But this is the small business. The dynamics are different. There are some employees, but their turnover is very less. Then you have medium-sized businesses where you are reasonably large. You're employing hundreds of people, and you're probably spread over multiple cities, and you are a reasonably well-known company for lakhs of customers. So you are a pretty decent sized company. So that's your medium sized company. Now your turnover is in multiple crores, maybe tens of crores or hundreds of crores. So that's the medium sized company. Then you have at the top large companies who are really large. They're typically listed companies in stock exchanges, and they are definitely doing business in hundreds or thousands of crores kind of business. Then the fifth one I would add to this whole classification is MNCs. where they are not based in one country, but they are truly multinational. So you take the famous brands that we know, whether it's McDonald's or um, uh, any kind of thing that we consume. Let's say Pepsi or Coca-Cola. These are all brands that we are familiar with, but they're all multinationals. Or you can also include the modern companies, even Netflix or Amazon or Google, Facebook. These are all multinational companies. They're serving customers across the globe, and this is a different class of customers. Their needs are totally different from even the large companies that I mentioned, who are typically confined to one country. They may be nationwide, but they may not be international. So the key point that I want to make here is it is very important for you when you are starting out as an entrepreneur to understand which segment of the customers are you targeting. And remember, we are putting here in plural so that you're not just targeting one customer or one segment of the customers. You don't need to. You can support or you can target multiple segments. So if you look at again my own company, we are targeting medium and large businesses. That is our focus. We are not really going after the micro or small businesses. The focus is squarely on medium and large businesses. Similarly, you need to have for your business, who do you want to sell to? That is very, very important, right? And we'll see with the examples a little later, so it'll become very clear for you. So now you know who your customers are. Then the second thing you need to be very clear about is what is the value proposition, or what are the value propositions that you are going to offer your customers. So this is extremely important because this is what will give you clarity on your deliverable, whether it's a product or a service or a combination of both. You need to know what you're going to deliver only when you are able to define the value proposition very clearly and succinctly, right? So we can just read through this question. So what value are we going to deliver to the customer? Which one of our customers' problems are we helping to solve? We need to be very clear about it, right? You can't solve all the problems. You cannot be a Swiss Army knife as a new, fresh, young company. You have to have that laser focus. What is that one problem that you're going to solve, right? And then once you figure out the problem, then what are the customer needs that you are satisfying? Is it convenience? Is it cost? Is it instant gratification? What is it? Or what are these that you're going to target? The customer needs. That is something that you need to be very clear about. And then from these, you will be able to define what bundles of products and services are we offering to each of these customer segments. So now, if you have multiple segments, maybe you have multiple products, right? You may not have a one size fits all. You may have different products for different people. So you take, for example, in my own industry, airlines as an example, right? So airlines not only sell basic economy class tickets, they also sell business class tickets and first class tickets, right? So the core service is the same. You're going to take people from point A to point B, but they are selling different products, right? So they're selling the basic travel product in economy, but when it comes to business, they take you from point A to point B, but without a lot of inconvenience for you. So then that will go through the entire product specification. It's not just about what you're offering on the plane, right? It's not just about the seating, lighting, meals, and the kind of service that you're offering while you're flying, but you should also be thinking about the end-to-end experience. For example, many of you may know, if you book a business class ticket or a first class ticket with Emirates, they send you a limousine to your house. They send you a Mercedes or a BMW car to your home to pick you up to the airport. And not only that, when you arrive at the destination, they have a chauffeur-driven, nice limousine waiting for you at the city where you're traveling to. and it'll take you and drop you wherever you're going, to the hotel or to your house or wherever it is. Now, this is amazing, right? So this is the kind of customer needs that they have thought about. So they have now looked at the service that they're offering, not only as flying from airport to airport, but they're taking it as taking a person from home to home, right? This is the definition of their business class and first class product. So the reason I'm mentioning this is it may be ultimately one airline, but there are multiple products there, and there are multiple customer segments that they are targeting, right? So the way they are selling their economy tickets would be about all the sale and other things. But when it comes to business class tickets, they're not going to talk about price. They're going to talk about the luxury that you get, the convenience and comfort that you get, right? So the entire marketing message changes once your value propositions are different. Okay, so it is very important for you to understand what is this value proposition, or what are the value propositions that you are offering your customers once you have defined the customer segments. Now, once you have these two pieces, there are two connectors that we have to define, right? The first connector is the channels. Now you have a brilliant product, right? Let's say Emirates, for example. I have an amazing airline that I have, and you have identified your segments also. Let's say the business traveler who's ready to fly on business class. Now, how do I take my product to this channel? If I just keep flying, but if I don't really reach out to these customers who are actually traveling today, then how will I ever get them as customers, right? So it is very important for you to understand how you're going to take the value propositions that you are creating and take it to the target customers. You don't want to send it to other customers, right? So if you are selling business class tickets, then you don't want to go advertise in a poor neighborhood, right? You will go and advertise in an affluent neighborhood. You will go and talk to businesses that have a lot of business travel, international business travel that they're undertaking, right? So you need to really reach out to your target customers. Now, how do you reach? How you reach depends on the kind of market that you are in, the kind of segment that you are targeting. So the key questions to answer are, through which channels do our customer segments want to be reached? That's very important for you to understand. It's not just what you think. Your customers, where are they? How do you take your message to them? That is the question. Then you're going to worry about how are our channels integrated. So those of you that have done marketing would know marketing is not just about doing several activities in silos. They all need to come together, right? So that's why it's called a campaign. The campaign has to have multiple elements to it. At least in traditional marketing, you will have, for example, a TV advertisement going, right? But when you do TV advertisement, let's say, come experience this chocolate, for example, right? Now you are all set to go buy the chocolate. But when you go to the neighborhood grocery store, if you don't find the chocolate there, then you will be disappointed. You've lost a customer, right? So it is very important for you not only to worry about sending a message to your customer, but you also need to understand where your customers go to consume your product, right? You need to make it available. You need to make the product available. Or it could be a supply issue. Maybe you do have the product, but maybe you're not able to get the demand right? So whatever channels you're using to get your value propositions out there, all these channels need to be integrated, and you need to know which channel works for which customers and what message you should send where, right? And just to complete that train of thought, if you are really promoting, let's say, a chocolate, it's not good enough to just put it in one channel. Let's say if you just advertise on TV, you may not register with many people, because many people may not watch TV. maybe they'll turn off or they'll switch channels when the advertisements come, right? So maybe they're not getting exposed to it. So you need to complement it with maybe a newspaper advertisement. Again, I'm talking traditional means. We'll come to digital thing in a minute. So you need to probably worry about newspaper, or there are many people that don't read newspaper also. Then what do? You probably need to make it visible to them in the form of a billboard, right? So you'll make it visible all over the city so that when they step out of the house, this message that you're sending will be all over them. So as it appears in multiple places through multiple channels, the same message gets reinforced, right? So that is why we are saying here, are your channels integrated? So you cannot send in one place how tasty your chocolate is, and in another place some other message, right? So it needs to be integrated, or they need to at least complement each other, the messaging that you're sending, right? Now, this is very, very important for you to identify the channels that you would use to take your product to your market. Now, if you have a digital product, let's say if you're a company like, let's say Netflix, if you want to really take the greatness of Netflix to all your customers, and by the way, don't think that everybody knows about Netflix, right? There is a large section of people who don't know Netflix, right? Because maybe they don't have a computer, they don't have a smart TV, and they don't use the internet as much, right? But they are consuming a lot of entertainment. So how do you reach out to them? So if you look at Netflix, they've done a brilliant campaign through service providers. So for example, Airtel, because they know that there is a large segment of population who accesses internet only through their mobiles. So what they have done is they've partnered with telcos like Airtel, and they are promoting Netflix with a nice promotion saying, if a mobile only plan, I'll give you for just $199 per month, right? And this message goes to all their subscribers. So in the form of an SMS, Airtel will push messages, Airtel will tell you about it when they give you the bill, and so on. So this is a very brilliant, let's say, a channel that they are using to attract all these customers to come on board as a Netflix customer. They offer a lot of goodies, right? 1 month free, mobile only plan. So all these things are the tweaks that they have done, and the channel they have chosen, let's say the telco, is to attract these customers, right? So it is very important for you to pick the right channel for the right customer segment. Now, the fourth one is another link between the customer and your product, right? So what are the kind of customer relationships that you want to build? So here, it's again an interesting thing. When we say the type of relationship, it could be different types. For example, it could be a person to person. So many of you would probably regularly visit your neighborhood, let's say pharmacy, right? The pharmacist probably knows you very well. He knows a lot about you, and he'll be able to help you with whatever you're looking for. And I know many people, and I have done it myself a few times, where you don't even go to the doctor, right? If it is a minor ailment, you just go and ask the pharmacist, and he or she will help you out, right? So in this particular case, you are loyal to that neighborhood pharmacist because that is a relationship that he has established with you. He's been very personal with you. He knows you very well. And that is how he's able to retain you as a customer. So this is a personal kind of a relationship that you have maintained. And if you become a very large company, to take, for example, Airtel as a company, then it need not be personal, but you bring the service, you bring the relationship to my neighborhood. So you will have probably an Airtel office or an Airtel service center, all over the country. So within a few kilometers of where you live, there is an Airtel office where you can go and talk to someone physical, right? So while it is not a personal relationship, at least it's a one-on-one kind of a relationship that they are able to maintain it. There may be different agents at different times, but they're able to help you. And then the third level could be, I'm going to give you phone support, right? So whenever you have a problem or whenever you need to get some clarity, you just call on the phone. And that is a little less of a, let's say, bond that they will be able to establish, but that is another service that they provide, right? But then the ultimate relationship that is evolving now is where the product has a direct relationship with you. There is no people involved. Again, I'll go back to Netflix as an example. In fact, I'll challenge you. There may be exceptions, but I'll challenge you guys to tell me how many people from Netflix you have spoken to in order to consume the services. If you think about it, it's very rare. At least I have not spoken to anyone from Netflix. I have not spoken to any agent about anything. I just consume the service. But still, I have a very, or at least Netflix has a very great relationship with me, because they're able to personalize the kind of shows that I will like, the movies that I will like. It just comes to me on my phone. Try this. You watch these things, so we believe you will like this, or this is what is most popular, and so on. And many a times I have discovered new things just from Netflix. So I have a very warm feeling about Netflix. So I trust Netflix. So this is a brilliant, cost-effective, and personal relationship that they're able to establish with me as a customer, all using technology, right? So this is just amazing. There is no people involved, at least touching the customer, but they're still managing to wow the customer and have that very close relationship with the customer thanks to technology, right? So these are the 4 types of relationships that you should think about, and be clear about which ones. It may not be one, it may be multiple, that you will want to focus on as the primary modes of relationships with your customers, right? So this is the 4th thing that you need to do, and this is the basic core aspect of business model. Okay, so far we have seen who the customer segments are, what the value propositions are, what are the channels we're going to use to reach these customers, and what kind of relationships are we going to maintain with these customers, right? So once we have answered these core things, now we will move to the 5th one, which is, I think there is a mistake here, but it's okay. The key resources that we need to be able to execute on the first 4. So if you look at the first 4, they are what we need to accomplish. I need to reach these customers through these means. I need to establish these relationships using these means. And these are the products and services that I need to offer, right? So these are the things that we are actually executing on. Now, from now on, we're going to see how. We're going to answer the question, how. The first how is, what kind of resources do I need to be able to execute on my business, right? So what are these resources? The resources could be distribution channel. It could be customer relationship. It could be a revenue stream. All these things, how do I accomplish? To do this, the resources that I need are, let's say, employees. I need excellent employees. I need a great team. So for example, if you want to build a brilliant system like Netflix, me from a software background, that is the example I'm going to take, you need amazing software engineers. You need, amazing architects who can pull off a wonderful service like that works, brilliantly. So that is the resource that I need. Those become my resources. On the other hand, if you have more of a brick and mortar kind of a business, let's say you are running, let's say the More supermarket. Let's say that is your business, or you're running MedPlus pharmacy chain. If you have a physical product like that, or a physical company like that, then one of the resources that I need, apart from employees, is the actual real estate. That becomes a resource that I need, right? Then if I am selling products from a retail outlet, then I need a resource in the form of inventory as well, right? And so stuff like that. So you need to really be clear about what are the resources I need to be able to do well in my business. Of course, one of the things that we should add here is capital as well. I need capital as a resource as well. Now, the next thing is, what are the activities I need to perform to be able to accomplish my business goals? These activities could be, let's say, marketing campaigns. It could be product development. It could be, let's say, sales outreach, right? So it could be any activity that I need to perform to be able to make the business work end to end, right? So these are the activities. Again, when we do the examples, it'll become clear for you. Then the seventh thing is partners. So in some businesses, you can claim that you don't need a partner, right? But in almost every business, you always need a partner, right? So you take any example. So even if I am running, let's say, a beauty salon, as we discussed earlier, I need partnership in the form of, let's say, cosmetic companies. Maybe they will come and give me the new ways of offering the beauty service to my customers. So my partners become the cosmetics suppliers. Or if I'm a supermarket, like a more supermarket, my partners could be all the suppliers, because without their products, if they refuse to supply to me, I cannot survive, right? Or if you take, let's say, Netflix as an example, in the old model, let's say 5-10 years ago, their key partners were producers or movie studios, right? Without them producing these services, entertainment, let's say, movies and shows, Netflix cannot survive. What do they sell if they don't have the product? So if they don't have that good resource with the studios, then they have nothing to sell. Just like a retailer cannot sell if the manufacturer doesn't supply to them, the same thing applies to Netflix as well. So in this case, the movie producers become the partners. But of course, if you look at the evolution of Netflix, again, we'll take Netflix as a case study. Netflix started producing their own shows because they realized that the partnership with the movie studios was becoming weaker and weaker, because the movie studios started seeing Netflix as a threat as opposed to a partner. So they started withholding many of their, let's say, movies and shows from Netflix. So Netflix had to solve the problem by producing their own shows. And I would say they have done a brilliant job at that, right? So all the new original shows that they have produced have been superior. They've been just world class. So this is the partners that we need. Okay, so in this new scenario, what I wanted to point out is, in the new world, who are Netflix's partners? It's not the movie studios. Then who would it be? If you think about it, it would be the directors and actors. They become the partners, right? So now they produce the shows for them, even though Netflix is financing them and giving them the infrastructure, but they need these artists. They become the partners. So this kind of, this particular block, you need to really think through who your partners are, right? And once you have identified it, we are down to the last two. One is the cost structure and the other is the revenue streams. So by this time, by doing these 7, we are very clear about everything about our business, right? How it's going to work, who I need to work with, what are my resources, what are my activities. Once you have all these things, one thing should start emerging for you, which is, how much is it going to cost for me to run the business? Both one-time costs, operational costs, as well as what are my unit economics for me to be able to produce one, let's say, unit of product or service. how much is it going to cost me? So this is the cost structure that you need to really work through. Again, we'll see some examples, but here you will include everything that is adding to your cost. You will not include things that are free, but you will add everything else. So for example, if you have an office rent also appears here. The salaries that you're paying, the fees that you're paying to, let's say, somebody like an Amazon Web Services, or the advertising cost that you have, anything and everything that you spend money on, that will need to be put here, right? And so the final thing is revenue. The revenue streams, again, you need to be very, very creative here, right? If you look at some businesses, they may not have been clear initially about how they're going to make revenue. That's very rare, but typically you need to at least have an idea, even if you don't implement it. I hope probably you all know who I'm talking about. If you look at companies like Google or Facebook or even WhatsApp, all these companies, when they started out, the first few years of their existence, they did not make a single rupee in revenue, right? They just created a product, put it out there, and built a loyal customer base, right? So they were spending, they knew their cost structure, but revenue column was zero. But they had an idea, they knew what they needed to do, but they wanted to achieve certain scale before they started monetizing it. And of course, today, they're, all these companies are, some of the richest companies in the whole world in terms of the revenue that they are making, right? But that is a rare case. But in a regular business, let's say you're starting out, you're creating a product and selling it to somebody, then you need to know what the revenue sources are, who is going to pay for it. So is it going to be the end customer, or is it going to be somebody else who's going to buy for them? You need to be very clear about that as well. And not only that, who is going to pay, but you also need to worry about how they will pay. When I say how, it's not just about cash or credit card or something, but how are you going to monetize it? So is it going to be per product, or is it going to be a subscription, or how is it going to be? Or is it going to be like a membership? What are you selling? That is something that you need to be very clear about. So if you look at, let's say, a Swiggy business model, they are charging both the end user, which is all of us ordering food from them, and it's going to be on a per transaction basis. Every food order I make, I have to pay, let's say, 40 rupees, 50 rupees as delivery charges. Okay, but they also make money from the restaurants, which is a bigger piece of the pie for them. The restaurants pay them whatever, 10%, 20%, depending on what they're delivering. That is the additional revenue for them. So this is one business model and one way of making revenue. But here itself, as you see, they have created multiple revenue streams. Now, on top of that, all these guys are also adding subscription services. So like a Zomato Pro, right? So you subscribe to that, then you have access to certain things, you get certain discounts and so on. So it becomes an additional revenue source for them. So you need to be creative about the revenue sources as well. Now, when you look at another company, let's say again Netflix, they are not into transaction model. They're saying, pay one fee per month and I'm going to give you unlimited entertainment. I want you to be hooked to my service. I'll just collect a monthly fee. But within the monthly fee, if you look at it, they have segmented it because they know in the low end of the segment, they will not be able to afford to pay, let's say, 500 rupees a month. So they created the 199 wala product where you can watch it only from a mobile phone, right? So these are the revenue sources that you need to really be creative about and put it all in the business model canvas. Okay, so with this, what we have done is we have seen 9 key elements that you need to really think through for any business to put together a business model, right? And this is how they have converted it. So you would have seen in some kind of an animation so far, but when you start working on it, you put together this whole thing in the form of a nice table like this, right? So you will be able to hopefully digest what I have spoken about so far. So let me actually pause here for a minute and take any questions, because I would like to see some feedback before we go ahead and start looking at some examples. So any questions you have, either you can type or maybe unmute and ask. So let's take a 5-minute question kind of a session. Okay, so I see a question number 6 before partners, and 6 is activities, key activities. So the activities identify what you're going to perform. For example, as I said, advertisement campaign is an activity that you will perform. Product development is an activity that you will perform. So hopefully that is kind of clear. So any thoughts, comments from anyone? Does it make sense so far? Because when we go ahead, I don't want you to get confused or anything like that. Okay, so there is a question here. Okay, so there's an interesting question from Ashil. What are the main challenges I faced in my entrepreneurial journey, and how did I overcome them? What are the common mistakes that entrepreneurs in e-commerce platform need to be aware of and avoid? Right, a brilliant question. I'll take this right now, even though it's like a segue from what we are discussing, but it'll all be interrelated, right? See, entrepreneurship is full of challenges. It's all about facing challenges that you have not faced before. At least as a first-time entrepreneur, you wouldn't know what it takes to build a company. You wouldn't know what it takes to sign up a customer. You wouldn't know how to hire employees. You wouldn't know how to build a product or service. You wouldn't know how to market it, right? So obviously, nobody is born with a natural talent with all these things, right? So the biggest challenge is going to be at peace with being able to do something that you don't know. So to be able to perform some action, to be able to take up a project or take up something, some activity, fully well knowing that I don't know how to do it. I have no idea, but I'm going to learn. I'm going to do it, right? So that is the biggest challenge that you face every day. I know it's a very generic, high-level thing. I will get into a couple of specific things, but this is the thing, right? So you just don't know how to do this. So in my case, for example, I didn't know how to raise money for a business. So you learn. So initially we made a lot of mistakes. We didn't know what to pitch, how to pitch. And when many people were not interested in investing in us, you learn. And then you refine your pitches. You start talking a different language. You start presenting the same thoughts, same ideas in a different way, which will be appealing to the investors, right? So this is one little thing. But in terms of a big challenge, obviously in my line of business, which is travel, the biggest challenge that I faced was with the COVID, right? When COVID hit us, we were actually doing very, very well as a business. We were growing month on month at something like 20% or 30% month on month. We were hiring people. We had a great team in place. We had a great marketing machinery in place, and a beautiful pipeline of customers that were talking to us. So we were all set to grow, and we were growing. And we had also lined up the next round of funding. This is back in 2020, early 2020. And we were really at our peak at that time. But then COVID hit us, right? When it hit us, I didn't know what to do, right? It was a huge, huge challenge because nobody had seen something like this before. How do you model it? If it is a typical recession, or let's say, any event that we have seen, let's say financial meltdown, or some travel related thing like 9/11, there is precedence. People know what to do. You can talk to some people, get some ideas, model it, and you'll be able to deal with it. But in the case of the pandemic, nobody knew back in 2020 what is going to happen. So is travel dead, or is it going to come back? If it is going to come back, how soon will it come back? And if it will come back, will business travel come back? And even if that comes back, how much of it will come back? And will the need be different, right? We have no idea. So how do you even do anything? So having built a team, having experienced success, having experienced traction, and the high feeling of everything going right for you, how do you now switch back and figure out, play defense? So to use a sports metaphor, having played offense, how do you switch to playing defensively overnight? It was hard. It was really hard, right? So in that process, I made a lot of mistakes. We didn't realize that it will take this long. Initially, we were fooling ourselves, thinking, it'll go away. In India, there are no cases. It won't come to India. We are implementing all these lockdowns and everything. It'll go away. Lockdown is there only for 2 weeks. It'll be fine after that. Because I was reading so much about the pandemic that everybody said, if you have lockdown, if nobody goes out, the life of this virus is only 2 weeks. So if 2 weeks, everybody sits at home, the virus will go away and we'll be back to normal, right? So we waited and we waited and we waited, right? And nothing happened. It started getting worse and worse. So we didn't do any action. So we were burning cash because our revenue came down to zero. But then it took us a while before we reacted. So that is a big mistake, right? So we reacted a little late. And even when we reacted, I was tentative. We were not really taking a very deep cut, doing it more incrementally. Okay, let's reduce the cost a little bit here, a little bit there, but it'll come back. Travel will come back in 3 months, in 6 months, and so on. So it took us a while to really realize how severe it is going to be, and to go from that growth mode to survival mode. It took us a while. So that is the biggest learning that I would say. And then the only other thing that I'll mention, since the question has been asked, which will be relevant to all of you, is don't be afraid of, let's say, sharing your ideas with other people, right? One of the things that I used to feel initially is that, hey, whatever product that we are building, let's not talk about it. Let's not share it with many people. Let's not give out details to many people. Let's build it. Let's work on it ourselves. And because if I put it out there, somebody else will copy, and somebody else will steal all these ideas and start competing with me, right? In hindsight, it was really stupid, right? It was really a bad idea. So what I would recommend is, you should really talk to many people, really brainstorm and bounce it off with many, many people, because only then your idea will get stronger. And believe me, pretty much everybody else in the world has their own thing to worry about, right? Just because you come and tell me, you know what, I'm planning to start this business in this area, and here is my idea. I can't just steal that one line and then build a business myself, because you, whoever has come up with the idea, are the one that knows the most about that business, because you have done so much work on it. You have really ideated so much. You've thought about it so much. You've planned so much. You've modeled it so much, right? And you have collected so much data. You have so much of first-hand experience that nobody else can replicate it. It's extremely rare for anybody to take your idea and run with it, right? So, of course, some of the, let's say, if you're doing something very, very nifty, some new algorithm, obviously, I don't want you to go publish that algorithm out there and let somebody steal that. But overall, your business idea, your business plan and business model, these things you should talk to many people. The more people you talk to, the more you share, the better it is. So in the initial days, I still regret it because in the initial days, I was in a closed world. I would model it myself and I will go and implement it. And then when you go to market, you realize, oh, this is not what people wanted. This is not what works in the market. Then you throw it away and do it again, and then do it again, and so on. Instead, if you really share, if you really ideate better with more people, more capable minds, then you're going to have a much better, much more refined idea, right? So anyway, so these are the couple of things that I can probably share with you, and we can talk more maybe during the next break or something. Okay. So with this, I assume you're all clear about what the business model canvas is all about and why it is important, and what are the 9 building blocks, right? Now let's go ahead and take maybe 2 or 3 examples, and it'll become much, much clearer. So I'm just going to, take from a website some things that people have already created. I didn't create it. I won't claim credit for it. And I want to just share that with you. We'll go one by one. But before that, I forgot about this one. The same canvas, the 9 things that I put together, you can also view it from a different angle. So instead of 9, let's say, disparate things that are just glued together in a canvas, you can see that, we are talking about customers by looking at the customer segments, channels, and relationships. The offering, that is product or service, is the value proposition piece, and the infrastructure that you need to create. That is covered by the key resources, key activities, and partner network. And the finances, if you are from finance background, 2 key things that you will worry about are cost structure and revenue streams. I just wanted to present it in a different format, if it makes sense for you. Okay, so now let's take a specific example. And again, a quick reminder, if you are working on a business plan of your own, use this opportunity to take a piece of paper, put this, let's say matrix, if you will, the business model canvas, a blank one, and start jotting down your specific points. That is the only way you will get clearer and clearer about your business. Okay. All right. So thanks to this website, Grey Fox, let's look at the Netflix business model. And in fact, before I forget, let me mention one thing. This business model canvas is not useful only at the beginning. Okay, it's very important. It is. So I showed you the journey of an entrepreneur earlier, and I put it as the number 2 thing you should do as an entrepreneur. But it doesn't mean that when you've moved on to step 3, step 4, and you have launched the company, launched the product, that you can forget about your business model. No, not at all, right? And while doing this Netflix case study, I will explain it. But as an entrepreneur, you need to keep revisiting your business model canvas periodically, at least once a year, if not once a quarter, because that is when it will become clear to you as to whether you need to make any changes to your business. So basically, this business model canvas becomes your foundation, right? You're building your organization on top of this. If any one of these blocks becomes shaky, then your whole building will collapse eventually. So you need to keep making changes to these building blocks so that your organization as a building will withstand the challenges of the time, right? So again, with the Netflix example, um, um, see, originally, before we get into this, some background about Netflix, right? Netflix is a relatively old company, as old as Google, I think. 20, 25 years old, around that much time. So initially, in the early 90s, I used to live in the US at that time, and I was a Netflix customer at that time itself. But initially, those days, internet was not at all there. Whatever internet we had was just a dial-up network, or at the most, let's say something called ISDN, 64 kilobits per second. That was like awesome in those days, in the 90s, right? So streaming and so on, nobody could even imagine streaming to happen over the internet in the 90s. So how did Netflix come to life at that time, right? So originally, Netflix was just a DVD rental company, nothing else, right? If you remember those days, we used to rent. I think many of you may be too young to probably know this, but in the early 90s, the only way for you to watch movie at home is you need to rent a movie in the form of either a tape, a VHS tape, or a DVD. And when DVD came, because of the quality and cost, the VHS tapes went out of fashion and out of business. So all new movies that you can watch at home, you have to go somewhere, get a DVD, and from a DVD player connected to your TV, you will watch the movie, right? And it was a pretty time-consuming process. And in the US, there used to be a company called Blockbuster, right? It was a very, very big company. They had a shop, in every other street, sort of like you can think of, let's say, Apollo pharmacies, or one of these pharmacies. Every other street you have a that Blockbuster outlet. So the idea was, let's say Friday evening, Saturday evening, you want to watch a movie. What you would do is, okay, let's go get a movie from Blockbuster. If you don't want to go to the theater, if you just want to sit at home and watch a movie, right? You just go to the neighborhood Blockbuster, rent a movie in a DVD, and bring it home and watch it. But there were pain points there, right? Number one, you have to drive. There is no, the movie is not available for you when you want to watch it, right? And number two, the pain of going there, especially in the US, if it is snowing or something, you don't feel like going out and renting a movie. And thirdly, when you go to that shop, there is no guarantee that the movie you want to watch is actually available there. And most of the times it won't be available. For example, if a movie comes on DVD in a given week, for the next 2-3 weeks, you just cannot get the DVD anywhere, because people will just go grab it as soon as it is available, right? So it became a big pain point. So you go there and then you pick some movie which you didn't even want to watch, and you bring it home, right? So these are all the pain points of the existing business model. So what Netflix said was, in the initial days, I'm going to make the DVDs come to you. You don't need to come to me to take the DVD. right? So as they say, if Muhammad doesn't go to the mountain comes to Muhammad, right? Or something like that. I may not be saying it right, but it's that. So Netflix said, okay, this is going to be my innovation. I will make DVDs sent to you on mail. It'll come to your house and you can keep it as long as you want. This is the other pain point that most of the people faced. Blockbuster would say you need to return the DVD in 2 days. If you don't return it in 48 hours, then there will be a heavy fine. Per day, they will charge you $1 or something like that, right? So it'll add up. Sometimes you forget. You watch a movie and then you put it away and you just forget. And whatever, 2 weeks later, you realize you have to pay whatever, $20, $30 more than the cost of the DVD, or the cost of the DVD is what you have to pay, which was again a bad experience for a lot of users. So what Netflix said was, you know what, you log into the internet and specify your wish list. These are the 100 movies that I want to watch, and you rank them in order, right? And at any point in time, you can rent, let's say, 2 or 3 movies from me. The top 3 movies you've selected in your list, I'm going to mail it to you, to your house. You keep the DVDs as long as you want. You can ship it back the same day, or you can ship it back 1 month later, no questions asked. But as soon as you ship it back to me, the next item on the list will be mailed to you. So which means at any point in time, there will be, let's say, 3 movies. They had different subscription plans. Let's say, 2-movie plan, 3-movie plan, 5-movie plan, and whatnot, right? So at any point in time, I will have whatever 2-3 movies lying at home. So if you notice, just for the simple innovation, it solved pretty much all the pain points, right? So the movie is available for me whenever I want, right? Because it's there already. You don't need to go somewhere to get it. And you don't need to be disappointed that the movie is not there, because I have specified which movies I want to watch. And over a period of time, I will get only movies that I want to watch, right? And I can just put it in there and I can watch multiple times. I can keep it for a month, 2 months. I can own the DVD if I want to. And there is no late fee also, right? So this was a brilliant innovation, and they quickly became popular. This is how they came to business, right? And they did pretty well. But then later, they had to really flip the business around streaming. In the early 2000s, they had to flip the business because they knew that the DVD rental business was going away. So they had to innovate. And the point I wanted to make with this long story is that they had to keep re-looking at their business model, right? So their movie in the form of a DVD, that business was not going to grow beyond certain point, and a new opportunity for streaming opened up, which means they had to change the value proposition, which means they had to change the resources. They needed to get different kind of resources. They had to store all the movies. They have to stream it to everybody's house, right? And the kind of activities they had to perform, that changed, right? So that is the first sort of pivot that they had to do, from DVD rental to movie streaming. So how were they able to do it? Only because they were looking at their business model regularly, right? I don't know how frequently, but Hastings, the founder, he's known to be a very shrewd guy. He keeps revisiting things. He keeps disrupting his own business, right? So that is what he had to do, and he was able to do it only by looking at the business model canvas repeatedly, right? So it's very important for us to review this business model frequently, at least once a year. Okay, so now let's look at Netflix in detail. First, let's start with the customer segments. So for customer segments, let's say you're going to launch Netflix in India. Which customer segment would you look at? Right? So you cannot say, I will sell it to all Indians. And when Netflix came into India, even 4G was not prevalent, I think. It was only 3G kind of a market. And few people had wired broadband at home, right? So initially, their segment was only those people that had a computer, because those days smart TVs were also not there, right? So they were probably looking at people who were able to afford a computer so that they can watch streaming movies at home. So that is the first thing. Second thing is, a computer alone is not enough. It is also important for them to have connectivity, right? So all the broadband users became their customers or became their target customers. So they had to first go after that segment. So they started promoting to all the broadband providers. So even now, one of the big channels for Netflix is the broadband providers. So for example, I have ACT at home, and I finally got Netflix, even though I'm not a big movie buff, is because ACT started pounding me with all these offers. I'll give you free, I'll give you discount, and this and that. At one fine day, I said, okay, let me just take it, right? So, so they were very clear about their segment. That is my point. Those who have broadband connection, that becomes their segment, right? Then, as the market evolved, when let's say sufficient bandwidth was available, and even the broadband data, mobile broadband data was cheap, and all these unlimited plans started coming about thanks to Jio, then they would switch to mobile plan, right? So all the mobile users with internet became their potential target customers, right? So the customer segment that kept getting refined. So if they were to identify initially when they entered the country, their customer segment would have been those who own a PC or laptop and those who have broadband. That's how they would start. But you need to keep refining this. Once you have identified it, now let's jump to this column, value propositions. So why would somebody want to watch Netflix as a streaming video, right? Number one enticing thing is 24/7. I can watch any movie, anytime, in the privacy of my home or wherever I am, right? That is the number one value proposition. It cannot be met by any other means of delivering this movie, right? Whether it's a DVD, whether it's a movie theater, it is just not possible. So this is the number one value proposition for them. They need to understand this very well. I'll stress on it a little later. A key activity, in fact, maybe we'll touch upon it right now, because I want you to see how it's all interrelated, right? So once you've identified the customer segment and the value proposition, number one value proposition is 24/7 on-demand entertainment, then your goal as a business is going to be to ensure that I am able to offer a seamless service which is available 24/7, which means what? I need to have a deep content, right? I need to have wide or broad content from multiple movie houses in multiple languages. That is something that I need to make sure, number one. Number two, I need to make sure that my platform, how I deliver this movie to you in streaming, is really top notch. I'm mentioning this because there is a lot of articles written about how Netflix is way ahead of its time when it comes to delivering video content to their customers, right? So the disruption that they caused themselves that I talked about earlier, from DVD business to the streaming business, at that time, Netflix invested heavily into video technology, right? How to digitize movies and still retain quality. They have umpteen number of patents about how video is to be manipulated and how it can be stored effectively. And number two, they work closely with companies like Akamai to make sure that whatever video that they're delivering over the internet is not going to be suffering because of internet traffic, because internet is a common network a shared network, you need to make sure that your video is not stopping and coming. It's not, there is no jitter in your video. It's very, very, very important. They were able to recognize it early on. So they worked very hard with all these edge computing kind of players like Akamai to really make their videos be superior. So in the early days, now of course it's become commonplace because internet bandwidth is gone up tremendously. But in early days, nobody else was able to offer video that well. So even YouTube will not load that well, but Netflix will load beautifully, right? Because they invested in the R&D. So if you look at the number one activity that I have written here, once you know 24/7 on-demand entertainment, you know you need to do a lot of R&D. That is my point, right? And to do this, you need a lot of money. So I need a lot of investors, because there's a lot of investment you need to make when you do this business model before revenue will come, because signing up millions of customers will take time. But I need to have a lot of investment before that, right? So that is the number one thing, right? So like this, they have all these things are interrelated. That is my point. Okay. So now let's come back to value propositions. So apart from this, the second thing is high definition shows and movies, right? One of the problems with DVDs those days was DVD will have a scratch here and there, and it may not be of decent quality. So how do I ensure high definition shows available to you at home? That is the thing. Third thing is streaming content wherever you are. Even if you are moving, I'll be able to deliver content for you. And the other innovation they gave was unlimited access, right? Whereas the offerings of that day or even today are by transaction. So if you take Blockbuster example that I gave you, each rental you had to pay, let's say $2, right? So if I am a movie buff, I want to watch 50 movies a month, I need to pay $100. Whereas with Netflix, with $10, I can watch unlimited number of movies. So it's a big innovation, right? That really unlocked the potential. And what they also managed to do with this is, even if I'm watching only 1 or 2 movies a month, I end up paying the same 500 rupees, for example, which may be a lot compared to going to a movie theater and watching. But they've managed to convince me that this is the right thing to do, right? So this is another innovation that they have done. This is the value proposition. It's very, very attractive. Watch as many as you want, whenever you want, in high definition. It comes to you, right? And of late, they also started delivering this Netflix original. This is another innovation from their side. That is an attractive value proposition for me because it's not available anywhere else. So if I want to watch a popular show like Breaking Bad, it's available only on Netflix. So you have to subscribe to Netflix, otherwise you just cannot see it anywhere else, right? And as I mentioned earlier, one of the value proposition is they're saying, come and try my product. No commitment, nothing. So they made the barrier for customers to join in very, very easy. That's a value for me. It's very tempting, right? And then the most interesting thing is no commercials, right? No ads at all. So compared to a TV, no commercials at all. You just enjoy your entertainment without any interrupt. So it's a very compelling value proposition, right? And all this, how are they going to deliver to their segments, the channels? So in this case, it's all digital. So any device, they would offer Netflix app so that you can watch it on the phone. Of course, word of mouth, we keep talking about it. Online advertising, it keeps coming on Google, Facebook, and wherever. Offline advertising, you see a lot of them in newspaper, and you also see it in social media. So it is very comprehensive things in terms of the channels, how to take this product and make it available to this customer segment. So depending on what your product is, these channels will differ, right? So if you notice, there are two aspects here. One is, how do I deliver my product? So that is the first two pieces. I'll deliver my product to any device, whether it's a TV or a computer or a mobile phone, and I'll offer it through the Netflix app. So this is the means by which I'm delivering my product to the customer. And the other things are about how do I make the customer come to my product? How do I make them come to me and sign up? Right. So one is this way, and the other is this way. So how do the customers come to me? By using these means of advertising. So again, depending on your product, you need to come up with the specific kind of channels that you need to focus on, right? And what kind of customer relationships am I going to maintain? So as I mentioned, this is one thing that I'm really amazed about Netflix. I use it a lot, but it's all about self-service. And it's so easy, so obvious that, I don't need to talk to anybody, right? And all this is available on demand. I don't need to wait for any time, any particular thing, and so on. Unlike, let's say, an Amazon delivery or a Swiggy delivery, yes, it is available on demand, but you have to wait, right? In the case of Netflix, it is instant gratification. So the other thing is ease of use. They have really, really worked on it. So the ease of use is a way that they have maintained the customer relationship. So when I think of Netflix, I feel like it's so easy. I feel like I can get anything I want without really worrying about anything. So, and I also know that Netflix knows me by looking at my watching pattern. They know me very well, and they're able to recommend things to me. In fact, I'll give you another tidbit here. See, the recommendation engine that all other companies are using today, whether it is an Amazon, when you're ordering goods, for example, in Amazon, if you order a few things, they will automatically recommend, oh, based on your order history, I think you will also like this. Or customers who bought this product also bought this product, right? So they're trying to build that correlation and so on using AI algorithms, and they're able to recommend things to you, right? And this actually was an innovation of Netflix. In the 2000s, about 10, 15 years ago, Netflix was just amazing. People used to talk about it, in the US, when it was available only in the US. It was just amazing because, as I was telling you, in the DVD model, you had to go create a list yourself, right? You had to go and say, I want to watch this movie, then this movie, then this movie, and so on. At some point, you will run out of movies, right? Then what do? If you don't add anything, then what do? This was the problem that they were trying to solve, because they wanted people to keep ordering more and more movies. So they started working on this algorithm, which later became a big AI based algorithm, where they could identify patterns, right? So people who order, let's say, watch crime movies, they keep ordering crime movies. Or if I watch comedy movies, maybe I'm ordering a lot of comedy movies. This is one kind of pattern, right? This is a genre based thing. Other could be, maybe I like a certain hero. If I like an Amitabh Bachchan movie, I'll keep ordering Amitabh Bachchan movies. So this is another kind of pattern, right? Or it could be theme based. It could be like whatever. I like war movies. So it could be a particular, let's say, seasonal thing also. In, let's say, Navratri season, I watch Navratri movie. Whatever it may be. So it's so they were able to study this pattern. It's not something that you can really put into 5 buckets or 6 buckets. And this is what they mentioned here. If you look at the top thing here, micro segmentation, right? So this segmentation is something that they innovated. And because of this, they were able to really start recommending movies to you. So if you watch this movie, they will recommend, and invariably those recommendations will be perfect, bang on. And so what happened was, later, initially people were creating lists, Later, they let Netflix recommend movies to them, and they started enjoying it. And whatever Netflix recommended, they kept watching. And then the algorithm got better and started recommending more and more to them. So this is another interesting thing that they did. So to wrap up this part, customer relationship is very, very important. And again, Netflix is a company that took it to the extreme. The relationship in their mind was about them understanding the customer and delivering what the customer wanted when they wanted, right? So it's just amazing kind of a relationship that they have built. Now that we know what Netflix is all about, they are delivering on-demand 24/7 entertainment to different segments of customers on any device, and they know how to reach the customers and how they're serving the customers. Let's look at what resources they need. If I want to build a company like this, or if I want to enter into, let's say, India, let's take that as a problem statement here. I'm a successful company in the US, but I want to enter into India, right? So if you noticed, they did not just say the same product in the US, I'm going to sell it in India. No. They made so many changes for the Indian market that's what we need to really understand, right? So the key resources that they need if they want to enter India is, number one, they need to build the brand. Initially, people may not be aware of Netflix. So you need to make people aware of the brand. And that is something that they need to really value. That is the resource for them, right? How do you keep your brand a premium? Then the apps and website and the platform needs to be made available in India. The kind of employees you need to hire in India, that is important. The kind of filmmakers and producers, you need to now start tying up with such people in India. The same Hollywood may not work here. It may work for a certain segment, but if you want to make it big, you need to have the local resources, right? And you need to also show that you're winning prizes and awards. Those are also your resources. Only then you'll be able to attract customers, right? So these are the different resources that they had to focus on. And what are the activities that they need to perform? They need to work on R&D. I already explained that. Content licensing. If it is in India, there are so many movies being made. So they need to tie up with all these studios in India and license them. And to offset that, they also need to start producing their own content, right? And content distribution is something that they need to work out. Their own content, can they distribute it through somebody else? That is also another thing that they can look at. Data analytics, this is a huge thing. As I mentioned, this is at the heart of how Netflix recommendation engine works. And the other activity that I need to perform is sales and marketing, because even if I have an amazing product, people won't just come to me. I need to really do some sales and marketing. That's very important, right? So now that I know this, in order to do these two things, what kind of partners do I need, right? I cannot exist on my own as Netflix and be successful. So how do I do that? Number one, I need a lot of investment. So I need to have investor relations. I need media producers as my partners. I need filmmaker guilds. So I need to really tom with all these people to be able to get that content. Cinemas and theaters, of course, now it's kind of a moot point, but if you noticed, when they entered, they would advertise in cinemas and theaters. That was really ingenious, because whoever loves movies, by going to theaters, give them an alternative for the same cost or even less. You can watch unlimited movies at home, right? So they had to advertise and get them. Then they also went to TV networks to do two things. One is to advertise, and the second thing is to license their shows also. Then these guys also were hosted in AWS. I don't know if they're still hosted in AWS because there is a conflict of interest, but originally they were hosted in AWS. And in fact, they pushed AWS to extremes, because the kind of service that they were offering were really testing the limits of what a cloud infrastructure can provide, because its volume, the volume of data that they had to process and the kind of latency that they had to support was just impossible for a standard AWS to provide. Right? So it was amazing what they had to do with that partnership. Consumer electronic companies to preload stuff, and also regulators. As you know, even now they run into the censor board in India for some shows and stuff like that. So they need to have them as a partner. They need to make sure there is no challenge there. Okay, so now we know end to end how the whole service is working, how I'm going to execute, how I'm going to be successful, and so on. Now let's come to the real bottom line. What is the cost structure going to be, and what is the revenue stream going to be? So even though in the business model canvas, I'm just putting bullet points here, when you do it, get into a little bit more detail, in terms of number, timeline, specific names, and stuff like that. In some cases we have, for example, I put Amazon AWS here. Maybe you can put other specifics here as well. Right? So in terms of cost structure, the reason I'm mentioning is when you talk about cost structure, it is also important for you to understand the specific numbers. So what are the costs for Netflix? Production of their original shows, marketing costs, R&D, which is a big element, payment processing fees, because you're accepting payment in the form of credit card and so on. You need to pay fees to the credit card companies. Licensing, if you're licensing movies from studios, you need to pay them. General admin, how to run the company, right? And also the infrastructure for you to host volumes of data in multiple data centers, you need to pay money as well. So these are the costs that I have. Now, how can I monetize it? What are the revenue streams, right? The basic thing is subscription model, right? That is what we are all aware of. And DVD rental is something that I have already spoken about. Now, there are two other things that I just wanted to spend at least a few seconds so that it opens up some ideas for you also. So when we think about Netflix, we only think of what the consumer pays them, right? But Netflix goes beyond that. The product placement is quite interesting. So if Netflix is producing shows, let's say Breaking Bad, for them to, let's say, if they want to show the hero drinking a soft drink, right? They have a choice. They can show a Pepsi, they can show Coke, or if the hero goes to a restaurant to eat, they can show Pizza Hut, or they can show, let's say, a KFC, right? When they have such choices and they don't care, they can pick anything, right? So what happens in movie industry, and some of you may know, is that the brands are ready to pay the production companies for placing their product in their shows, right? So since Netflix is probably the biggest producer of content, they are in a commanding position, and some of their shows are such huge hits, and millions of people watch it again and again, that brands queue up in front of Netflix to be able to place their product in these shows. So this is a huge revenue stream for them as well, right? And the other thing they have not started yet, or maybe they have experimented, I think, is now that they have their own treasure trove of content in the form of original shows that they have produced, like any studio, now they can license it to other players. So for example, they can even license it to Amazon. Maybe when a new show comes, for the first year it's available only on Netflix. Maybe second year onwards they can give it to Amazon, or they can just reverse it completely and license it to TV companies, TV channels. Let's say your Star, Hotstar, or not Hotstar, that's a streaming thing. Let's say Star TV, ZTV, or whoever it may be. Right? So these are all interesting revenue streams for them. So net, since this is the first example, I hope it's beginning to make some sense about once you are starting with a business, how do you put together this whole business model canvas? And just to drive the initial point home, this is not going to be constant, right? As I said, 15 years ago, when DVD market was, dying and streaming became the future, they looked at the same business model canvas where nothing about streaming was mentioned, and they started adding pretty much all the things that we see today, right? So that is one. Second disruption that they went through is when they had to start producing their own movies and shows. And at that time, all the things about actors and directors, filmmakers, these were not part of the plan at all. And in the last revenue stream, which is future model of licensing Netflix owned content, that was nowhere in the picture, or even product placement was nowhere in the picture. So you have to keep revisiting. So I can't stress this point enough, because no business is going to be static. If you are sitting in one place, you will rust, right? So you need to keep moving with the times. That is very important, right? Now I've got two more examples. So since this is a service-based thing, maybe I'll take a product example of, let's say, Tesla. This is another company that most of us just love because of the way it is continuing to disrupt this whole car market. So maybe we'll take a look at this example, and then we'll take a look at an Indian example and work on it ourselves, line by line. So if you look at Tesla, they came out of nowhere. It's kind of comparable to Netflix in a way that they're really disrupting a well-established space. If you look at Netflix, they're disrupting entertainment, not just movie watching experience, but entertainment, how it is produced, how it is distributed, how people watch it, everything is disrupted. Similarly, here Elon Musk is disrupting the way we look at cars, right? It is not just, as of now, it is just changing a petrol engine to an electric engine. That is what they have done. But in the long run, what they're doing is about self-driving cars, right? In fact, it's already there in Tesla. Many people use it. It's just mind-boggling. The way it is getting disrupted is amazing, because in the future, people are predicting that none of us will own cars. At least most of us will not own cars. Cars are available everywhere. You just book, car will show up, you get in, you give the destination, car will take you wherever you need to go. No people involved, no Ola, no calling the driver, and no servicing the car or nothing. So that is the future that we are looking at, and Tesla is really pushing us in that direction. Now, with that, let's quickly go through how a Tesla would do their business model canvas, right? The first thing, customer segments. They were very clear when they came out that I'm going to be a premium product, right? So they were not looking at people who own, let's say, a Maruti 800 to be their customers. They were very, very clear. So the first thing is, it has to be high net worth individuals. That is who I'm going to target. The second thing is people who are passionate about the green cause, who hate the pollution, who want to do their bit for the environment. That is the second segment, right? Of course, there will be intersections between the two. That is what they will be pretty much looking at. And a third thing, now they've introduced the trucks and so on, commercial fleet buyers, because they're bulk buyers, they'll be looking at overall long-term cost savings by switching to electric. So that is the other thing that they were looking at. Sports car enthusiasts, because one of the things that he is disrupting the market with is performance also. The performance of the cars are amazing. Nobody could have even imagined it, right? Now, the other thing is, of course, Elon Musk fans, corporate executives, and mid-tier management. So these are all different ways of segmenting your target users, because each of these segments, while there will be a lot of overlaps, you will know how to carry the message to them, how to make these guys come to you, right? So that's the first thing that they were very, very clear about. Now, the second thing, let's look at value proposition. What is the value being offered by Tesla? Number one, they really changed the market with the long range recharging flexibility. And we should all remember, Tesla is not the first electric car company. There have been many before them. In fact, years before them, even 10, 15 years before Tesla came, there were electric cars. But electric cars, whoever introduced it early on, they had a problem, which is the batteries available were not good enough for long range. So you can't even use for let's say 100 kilometers. Then it's pretty much useless. You'll always be worried about, will I run out of charge? So it only became just a fancy toy for someone to have as a second car, but not really for your everyday use. It did not become mainstream until Tesla came. So the first value proposition that they are offering, their innovation, is long range recharging flexibility. The second thing is high performance and modern design. All the electric cars that came before Tesla were ugly. They were not focusing on design. They were more like a geeky toys. And the second thing is, they were also not fun to drive. They were more like driving a golf cart rather than driving a performance car. Acceleration and so on was not at all good, right? So even in India, you look at the original car that came up. Now it's called Mahindra, the EV. It's it's an electric car, but it's not a high performance car, right? It's a functional car, but the design is not modern, and it's a limited car. It's not for the whole family to go. It's more like a personal driving rig. But now with the new cars coming, the whole thing is changing. But Tesla is instrumental in doing that. So their initial value proposition holds today. They are by far the leaders when it comes to high performance of the car, and also in terms of their design. In fact, they are the first ones to launch a sports car, which is a 100% electric car, right? Then the third thing is the energy efficiency. So the cost of ownership was way low for Tesla compared to a regular petrol or diesel car. Even though the initial cost is high, the long-term cost of ownership was lower. That is a very clear value proposition. Then another amazing thing that they innovated on, again, they were not the first one to do it. If you all remember, Google did tons of research and that helped Tesla in bringing the technology to life, which is autonomous driving capabilities, right? Driverless cars. So they were able to really wow their customers with these kind of capabilities. And finally, they also created a easy charging environment for people to not worry about charging their vehicles when they are traveling, right? So these are the value propositions, very compelling value propositions for this customer segments that we talked about. So how do you reach the customer segments with these value propositions? They had their retail stores, websites, conferences and events, and a lot of PR and media, right? So Tesla as far as I remember, initially did not even advertise. They did not do any big advertisements at all. They made it something that people would really crave for, thanks to all the PR and the kind of free promotions that they did. So those are the channels that they are using to reach their customer segments. And what kind of relationship do they maintain? Nothing fancy here. Customer service, customer intimacy, whatever I spoke about in Netflix, it sort of applies to Tesla as well, because these are all connected cars. They're able to understand their customers very well, and they're able to give them the kind of service that they need. And one of the things that Tesla has done is direct to customer. They don't use dealerships, if I remember correctly. They sell directly to the customers. And this is another important decision that they have made. So they've really got a very compelling thing going for them. But in order to execute these, what are the resources that they need? It's like a real tall ask, actually. But they needed the electric vehicle technology. As I said, they really innovated. They were miles ahead of the competition. That is their key resource. That is what they actually are able to sell. Then the second thing that they really focused on is battery production, because Elon understood the real problems of the electric vehicle market, and he went after them, innovated, and fixed them. That is why he's amazing. He didn't solve just one problem, but multiple problems. Okay? So the battery production is another key resource. They invested heavily in battery plants and cutting edge battery technology. So for the same size battery, they can hold much more charge, thereby increasing the range of the vehicle. And of course, one of the key resources they have is employees, all top notch with skills and knowledge that they possess. The engineering and design, that is another resource. They didn't want to make boring, geeky cars, but fun and exciting cars as well. And the founder himself has an amazing brand, as most of you would know. There's so many people that really worship him. It's, I would say, he is up there along with Steve Jobs. When Steve Jobs was alive, there was such a big fan following that anything that Steve Jobs comes up with, they'll just pick it up. They won't ask any questions about how much, what it does, why. They'll just pick it up, right? Similar fan following is happening with Elon Musk as well. So that's a resource for them. So they have to carefully build that brand of the founder also, and they've done a great job. So once we know what our resources that we need are, what are the activities we need to perform for the number one, the 1 and 2, electric vehicle technology and battery production? You need to do a lot of R&D, which is what they did in the initial years. Design, since they want to make it exciting, design is something that they have to do. It's very hard, it's not easy, but they really went after it. Power technologies, and since it is a manufacturing kind of a business, they had to invest in car manufacturing also. Right? It's not just producing technology, but they had to manufacture, because they own the complete end-to-end product. They're not outsourcing it. And finally, the charge point infrastructure also. So they went after all these activities, and these things came about by carefully understanding the previous 5 segments, right? So to round it out, the key partners that they have are, OEM alliances, basically to procure parts for their cars. Governments, because they had to get clearances, they had to get approvals, and they also had to work with the governments to make it conducive for Tesla and electric vehicles by getting more SOPs and stuff like that. Leasing companies, because initially the price was pretty steep, they had to work with leasing companies to make it palatable for even an upper middle class kind of a customer base. Then Panasonic for battery development. I think now the relationship has soured, but they really worked with them. That's a key partnership that they established. And for manufacturing and purchasing, they really leveraged the existing auto industry. They shared plants. They really worked with the auto industry to come up from where they were. Insurance and charge point partners as well. So I hope you're getting a drift of how you go about doing this. And finally, the cost structure and revenue streams. Manufacturing infrastructure, they had to invest a lot. Employees, which is the salaries, distribution, general admin, sales costs, R&D costs, and cost of materials. So all these were the cost structures that they had to worry about. And in terms of revenue streams, automotive sales is the main thing that we focus on. But to increase the sales, as we saw before, they also went after leasing as a revenue stream. Then for charging infrastructure, that became a revenue source for them. And also the automotive services. As you know, many auto companies have a very, very profitable service business, because the parts and cost of servicing, they make a lot of money, and Tesla has no exception here either. Right? So we've seen these two examples, and both happen to be, let's say, American companies. Now, let's focus a little bit on one of the local companies that we can relate to, and then time permitting, we can do one of our own. Right? So this is an example exercise I did in a class with students, but I thought I'll quickly run through this so that we're all able to understand, relate to this from something that we all use or are familiar with. Right? Now, when we talk about Swiggy as a business, let's say you are starting something like a Swiggy, how would you create a business model canvas? That is the thing that we're going to look at. So what is the customer segment? And imagine Swiggy has not started, right? How are you going to get started? Because that is where I want to focus on now. Because the other two examples we saw were of established companies, so the dynamics are different. But now what I want all of you to imagine is, let's say you are the founder of Swiggy, and today is day zero. The company has not even been incorporated, but you are putting together a business model. You thought food delivery is an exciting business. You want to disrupt the industry by bringing this into the market. How would you go about putting together your model? So the first thing you will worry about is, who are my target customer segments, right? So there are two customers, because Swiggy is a marketplace. They're bringing two segments together, the restaurants and the diners. Both of them are being brought together, right? So now, what are the segments as far as diners are concerned? So when you're starting out, obviously you need to deliver food, and food delivery is very time sensitive, because you typically order food when you are hungry and you can't take too much time to deliver it. So to be able to achieve that economy of scale, you can only focus on the urban population to start with, right? Once you have scale, you can look at suburban and rural, but initially urban population only. The second thing is more of youth, because older population typically doesn't eat out, at least in India. So you will go after youth. They are the ones that go out much more, and they are the ones that adopt this kind of technology, and they are the ones that that they want instant gratification as well. So youth is a clear segment. And the other thing is working population. So there are many people who are working and they don't have time to cook at home. They want to go out I mean, they want to order food, but it's very difficult and cumbersome to order. So it's a very, very great segment for Swiggy to address the working population and overall middle class and above, and also smartphone owners, right? And again, we are talking about few years ago, the smartphone penetration was not as high as it is today. So at that time, you would have targeted only the smartphone owners, right? Without that, you cannot really do this thing. Now, as far as restaurants are concerned, again, urban, because you need to be able to deliver quickly. And since your customers may want different kinds of cuisines at different price points, you want prices of all ranges. So this is how you would segment to start with, right? And then you will branch off and update it and so on. But let's start with this. If you're starting out, this is how I would start with. The second thing is value propositions, right? So what are the value propositions that I am offering a diner? I'm offering faster food delivery because I have the network of delivery executives. I'm able to offer faster food delivery. Second thing is variety. I'm giving you the whole, let's say, city available to you. You're not limited by what is available only in your neighborhood. I can bring food from even Malleshwaram here in, let's say, Hosur Road, right? It's just not limited by distance anymore. Now, so these are the two key things. And then the third thing is I also offer certain kind of quality and taste of food because I'm giving you some kind of user provided ratings also. So I'm able to give you certain idea of how this food is going to be, right? So that is an integral part of their offering. So this is a very compelling offering for diners. And for restaurants, I'm offering higher sales because you're not going to be dependent on your customers within walking distance of your place. Anybody can order your food. I'll make sure they get it. So higher sales for them, better price because Swiggy can help them promote their brand and command a higher price. More customers, naturally, better reach. You can now sell it to more customers that wouldn't even have known about your restaurant, right? And branding. So Swiggy now becomes a marketing platform for restaurants. If you think about it, now restaurants need not advertise anywhere else. They can just advertise on Swiggy. They can just promote their content on Swiggy. They'll get more orders. So it becomes very compelling for them to tweak their revenues. So once you know what the value propositions you're offering, and as we discussed, I'm assuming that we have already validated it during the ideation and validation phase. Let's say restaurateurs are saying, oh yeah, this is great. Diners are saying, yeah, this will be wonderful if you can pull it off. Now we need to worry about the channels. So how will I grow the business? How will I get both diners and restaurants to come on my platform? I'll use all the common things, social media, the app itself, word of mouth, emails, SMS-based marketing. And we also do delivery boys as a branding. When my delivery boys are going, then you get a brand reinforcement by looking at them, right? And also some kind of feet on the street I need to use to sign up restaurants. So these are the different things that I would do to really get my product over to my customers. Now, customer relationships, if you look at the kind of relationship that you will have with your diners and restaurants, with diners, you are offering them self-serve, right? You're helping them select the food they want. If they enjoy the food, they're going to have positive feeling about your product. So that is the relationship that you maintain with your customer. Personalized connection. So using again AI technology, I can do personalized recommendations for you. And I can also segment you exactly like what I told you about Netflix what they did with segmentation and personalization, I can do the same thing for Swiggy, right? So now I can tempt you, I can offer you what you want, when you want, with the right quality and at the right price point. For the restaurants, my relationship will be some kind of an account manager, because I want to make sure the restaurants keep spending on my platform. That is one. And also, I give them data support. This is a very valuable thing that they are offering. And even while I'm starting out, I should be thinking about it. So my relationship with restaurants is, I am able to give them very nice analytics on what is selling, who is ordering what, how often are they ordering, which food is good, which menu item is underpriced, which is overpriced, because I have all the competitive data. I can give all kinds of information. And also, by offering Swiggy as a promotion platform, I am able to give them that relationship as well, right? So these are the different things. Now let's move quickly. So resources, I need funds, I need to get patents for my technology, I need engineers, I need to build a brand, I need a delivery network, which is the core of their thing. Almost all of them in the gig economy seem to be having problems with it, but that's a very important resource for them. If the delivery network is disrupted, their whole business goes for a toss, whether it's a Dunzo or a Swiggy or an Ola. If they're the guys that are providing the service, that's a very important resource. And overall manpower that I need, whether it's sales and marketing or anything like that. So what activities do I need to perform? I need to create an attractive platform. Only then people will be able to order. It should not be boring. I need to now sign up restaurants. I need to do make it attractive for them. Then I can start doing some marketing, sign up the diners. How do I promote? How do I acquire customers? Then I have to get the delivery boys. I have to take care of the payment mechanism. So I need to do all these activities in order to get my business off the ground. And in terms of partnerships, restaurant associations become my partners, payment gateways, cloud hosting providers, vehicle leasing companies. This is another interesting thing that one of my students came up with, because today, or at least when they started out, only those people that owned a bike or a scooter can become a Swiggy delivery boy. But now things are changing. They're all considering, all these gig economy guys are considering getting a vehicle for them. They have long-term contracts with companies like, let's say, Yulu and Bounce, to be able to get these things for their delivery executives, so that the delivery executives don't have to worry about the vehicle anymore, right? So that is another kind of partnership that they can have. FSSAI, one of the students mentioned, but I don't know if it is there or not, unless they have their own cloud kitchens. They don't need to do that, but it's something that since they are in the food industry, they need to have FSSAI on their side. And of course, recruitment agencies, because they need thousands and thousands of delivery executives, and investors, of course. Right? So this gives you a kind of broad idea of what you would have done if you were Swiggy when you're starting out. Right? In terms of cost structure, I don't want to go into this. It's nothing extraordinary. And with revenue streams, we need to be a little bit creative, right? So we already know diners, we pay delivery charges, 40, 50 rupees a delivery. And then restaurants pay that commission. And the third thing is, we touched upon it, you can also make money from advertisements from restaurants by promoting their food on the Swiggy platform. this is a big source of their revenue as well, right? So, so you need to be creative about how you want to generate more revenues um, from your customers, maybe the same customers or from new set of customers as well. So that's the Swiggy example. Now, I have more, but I want to again pause here and ask for your feedback. What would you like to um, do now? We can work on an example, live, item by item. We can type and kind of put that together. Or if you're interested, we can talk about some of the other steps we have to do, because business model canvas we have covered. Maybe we can talk a little bit about how do we take it from here. Once you have a business model in mind, some of the things that we have to do also include things like understanding competition. So competitive analysis becomes an important aspect. And also, maybe how do you take this business model and convert it into a business plan? What more do you need to do? So if you go back to my original slide about the 5 steps that an entrepreneur has to go through in his journey, maybe we can look at the other steps as well. So let me pause here and take your input. You can unmute and ask, or you can type your comments. Okay. So I have a question from Ashil Thomas. If Swiggy turns towards a complete drone delivery, what all would change in the canvas? Brilliant question, right? I love this. So this is very similar to what Netflix went through, right? The example that I walked you through in detail. This is the same disruption that happened. The 2 disruptions we talked about when DVDs became streaming entertainment, and when existing movies became in-house productions, right? So this is a similar question. So if you look at one of the pain points for these companies, whether it's an Amazon, Flipkart kind of companies, or a Swiggy, Zomato kind of companies, one of the big problems that they have is managing this workforce and to be able to offer a consistent service. It's very, very difficult for them because it's involving so many humans, and it also has to rely on external conditions also. For example, traffic, weather, so many things are happening. So drone is something that companies have already started experimenting in the US, and even in India, they've allowed companies to start using drones for experimentation and research purposes. So this will be a big disruptor, assuming that drones really make it big. And I think they will, maybe not immediately, maybe 5 to 10 years from now. We're going to see drones all over the place once the technology becomes foolproof, in the sense that they don't get into accidents, because when you have too many drones flying around, they should not crash into each other, right? So there has to be some way for them to regulate themselves. So once that happens, this will completely change. So let's go through one by one. So will this change the customer segments? we have to ask ourselves this question. Will they be able to address different customer segments once you have drones? Right? If you think about it, it could. It could. Again, it's a guessing answer. It could, because, for example, initially, let's say they are targeting only the urban market. Now they can go to rural markets also, because the cost of having a drone pick up food from a rural restaurant and deliver to another rural customer, maybe a few kilometers away, is not going to be as high as having a delivery executive, right? Because you don't need such an economy of scale. You can bring the drone back to another restaurant, pick up and do another delivery and whatnot. So it could change their customer segments. And also from affluence perspective or affordability perspective, maybe you will be able to now target lower end of the segment also. Why not? Right? So because today the delivery cost is so high that they cannot deliver food that costs maybe less than 50 rupees. I'm just picking a number, right? Because it costs 50 rupees to deliver and the cost of food itself is 50 rupees. I would rather go there and eat than paying another 50 rupees to get the food, right? But if drones come about and the cost of delivery is very low because there is no humans involved, it's technology, incremental cost could be very, very less. In which case, maybe they can go after the lower end of the segment also. And who knows, maybe they can also do the Dabbawala service, right? So it can really change the customer segmentation for Swiggy if drone technology becomes really viable in the market. So that's why they are already looking into it. Both Zomato and Swiggy, they have a team that is already looking into it, how it will change and so on, right? So that is the first part. Now, the next thing is your value propositions. So value proposition now will become even more compelling, right? So if they have enough drones, they can deliver even faster, because if they're able to deliver food in 20-30 minutes with the traffic conditions, with humans going there, picking up, coming, calling, and all those things, drones can reach faster, because it's as the crow flies or as the drone flies, it's going to be less distance. And with enough investment, you can make it really, really efficient. So then as soon as you want food, within it, just the key time is going to be making of the food. The transit time is going to be really minimized, right? So this is the second thing that I would say, value proposition will get better, and probably the cost will come down. So the value proposition will be again better in terms of cost. So those are the things that I can think of. And in terms of let's say channels and customer relationships, I don't see much, unless the drone itself creates a relationship with the diners. That is one thing that we can probably explore. Apart from this, the key resources, of course, you will add, investment in drones, which means you need a lot of investment, money, and you need to procure a lot of drones. Whereas in the case of delivery executives, it's a OPEX, because you're just paying them only when they deliver, only a monthly salary kind of thing. In the case of drone, you need to procure thousands and thousands of drones, which means there's a lot of CapEx and a one-time expense involved, right? So that's the other thing that will change from resources perspective. I need to invest in resources, and I need to really worry about money also. And coming back to the activities, you may have to add one or two more activities, which is you will have now a team who will be just maintaining the drones. Because drones may develop problems. You have to manage them, maintain them, track them, schedule them, so many things, right? That is another new kind of technology team that you will need to have. And also, you need to worry about the sensitization of customers with respect to drones. You need to protect your drones because people should not vandalize drones, and you should be able to sensitize your customers to just take the food and not the drone, right? That's the kind of thing that you need to worry about as well. And partnerships, you will have to now worry about regulators, because for drones there was a new regulation published. You need to now worry about regulators, and also you need to have new partnerships with drone manufacturers. That's a new thing that you need to procure. So how will it impact your cost and revenues? Your cost can go down, I'm saying in the long run, because the cost of delivery will probably be down. You don't need to pay a salary, you just have to pay for the equipment. So that is one. Your revenue may go up because you're able to offer better service level. Maybe more customers will order from you, which means your revenue will overall go up. So those are the things. And maybe a new revenue stream could be like a premium offering. Maybe regular executive will deliver at a 50 rupees, but if drone delivers, you'll have to pay 100 rupees because you'll get it in 10 minutes. The regular executive will take 30 minutes, something like that, right? So so this could be a new revenue source for Swiggy. So these are the things that I could think of for Swiggy, but feel free to add. There is no one right answer, you know. All right. Anything else? Anybody would like to add or ask? It's a very quiet group. Okay, since there is no question, so Professor Shweta, what do you suggest? How do we take it forward? We have covered business model canvas. If needed, we can do one more by hand, real time. We can work on it. That is something that we can do, or we can cover another topic like competitive analysis or something like that. Professor Shweta. Okay, so probably she's not reachable. All right, so let me take a call here. Oh, I see. Okay, so let me unmute you all. Let me see if I can. Somebody said you cannot unmute yourself. I'm sorry, I'm not able to figure it out here. Okay, allow participants to unmute themselves. Okay, so now you should be able to unmute yourself. So anybody wants to ask a question or provide a comment, why don't you unmute yourself?
Yeah, this is Surbi Sign. The business model, when we'll start the business model of our competition or the plan. So we'll follow the each and every step you mentioned here. That area you have to cover up. This case study, every case study wise, we have to put point, every point you have to write like this. Study.
Yeah, it's up to you. See, it's your business, right? So I'm assuming you're asking for your own entrepreneurship journey, right? Or maybe for this competition, what is the context of the question? You're asking whether you should write point by point.
Yeah, competition also as an entrepreneur we are thinking. So every point we should cover so that it will and the end result will be good, or is that mandatory or is that optional? So
See, these are guidelines, right? These are best practices, but depending on your business, some of the steps could be an overkill. You can go light on it, but typically I would say you should spend enough time working on this. So it is not just a half an hour, 1 hour kind of work and move on, right? Because all the points won't be visible to you. All the points won't be apparent to you as you start working on it. So you need to spend some time. When I say some time, spend a week or two and think about it in the background. And every day, spend a few minutes, let's say half an hour, 1 hour, looking at the canvas, thinking about these points, adding something, removing something, refining something, and then ask yourself, am I missing something? Is there more? And so on, right? So it is important for you to spend time thinking about it. And the business model canvas is just a tool. It is just one way of putting things together. The format is not that important, but it helps. At least it gives you a structure. So when you do this in this structure, at least you wouldn't have missed anything. If you do it sincerely, you wouldn't have missed anything. There won't be any surprises when you start the business, when you go live, right? So I would recommend spending enough time. How much detail you want to put in there, it is up to you. This is not an academic exercise, right? So please don't take it like that. It's not like if you don't do it, you will fail. No, not at all. But at least mentally, you should be thinking about these 9 factors and the pros and cons of doing something, pros and cons of not doing something, and stuff like that.
okay, thank you. Yeah.
Any other questions or comments, anybody?
Yeah, I have another question. So actually, when the somebody do business practically, he got on time many issues. Generally, we are planning, we cannot get that type of issues or that forecasting. This should take care, that should be take care. When you practically go the business, that is a different scenario, and you are on daily basis getting issue and you are trying to solve it. But practically, theoretically, without doing business, planning is different, but education is different. So how it will help the business plan and the reality, how it will match? Or you cannot assume every time this problem will come, this is the straightforward solution. Not like that.
Oh, yeah. That's a excellent question. And see, you cannot be prepared for everything in life, right? And especially as an entrepreneur. But you can minimize the kind of, let's say, pain. You can minimize the pain that you will go through when certain situations happen. That is all we can do. You can prepare yourself to be able to deal with any situation. So what we are doing in this workshop and in the series of workshop is to arm you with some kind of a thought process, some kind of a structure, so that when you really start the business, you are mentally prepared. You have thought about many things. You have thought about different scenarios. You thought about your competition. You thought about your pricing. You thought about your customer. You've thought about your product. So when something happens, when the customer says, I don't like your product, you're not going to be shocked at that time. You would know taking feedback from customer is important. And similarly, when a competitor, let's say, comes up right next to you, he's getting into your territory, you will not be shocked because you are reviewing your business regularly, you are prepared to deal with anything, but you cannot expect what will happen tomorrow. But see, let me put it in another way. Nobody can prepare you to prepare you with an answer to any situation that will happen in life. I cannot give you a book and say, these are the 100 things. Any of these 100 things can happen. If A happens, do X. If B happens, do Y, and so on. We can't predict that. But what we can do is, because that's not just 100 things that can happen. A million things can happen. We don't even know what will happen. But what we can do is we can go deep into our own business and understand different aspects of our business. So once you have a deeper understanding of all aspects of your business, even when an event happens, which is very shocking or detrimental to you, you are in such control of your business that you will be able to deal with it. Okay, so there is no easy answer. Nobody can give you easy answers, but be prepared, be diligent, be thorough about your business. Don't just skim on the surface, but go deep into your business. Understand each and everything about your business.
Oh, okay, thank you. And this finance part I didn't get. Who will the finance if you start a business? Is it covered? Maybe I missed in between.
No, I did not cover it. Perhaps we can talk about it now because we do have some time. See, one of the key resources required for any venture is finance, right? So in fact, in this course, I had covered something. Why don't I run you through the slides? Just give me a second. Okay. So since you asked about financing, let me, share some of the things that I had put together. So whenever you start a new venture, there are multiple ways in which you can fund it, right? So many people self-fund it. You start with a certain amount of investment. You'll say, let me run it for 3 months, 6 months. If it works, great. Otherwise, I'll move on to the next thing, right? Or you may come from a, let's say, financially well-off family. Let's say your family will probably give you money and say, okay, try it out. So that is family funded. It could be a family business. So you have funds either with yourself or with your family. That is one. Or in traditional businesses where you're building an asset, let's say you have a shop, you have a factory where you're buying machines, you're buying something physical, something tangible, then banks will be ready to give you loans. So for example, if you're building a factory to, let's say, make shoes, right? The bank will give you loans to buy all the equipment. And nowadays, for small businesses, banks are giving 80-90% of the asset value, right? So these are the traditional ways of getting funds. But if you, there is also a fourth way, which is external investors. So bank also is going to give you money as a loan, which means the business is 100% owned by you and whoever else started with you. But the investors, bank is just giving you money as a loan. You have to pay it back. Bank does not own your business. You own 100% of your business, right? But in all the new, startups and so on, the way to get money into the company is through investors, which means somebody will be able to say, you know what, I'll give you money, but I will own X% of your company. So let's say I'll give you 1 crore, but I want 20% of your company, right? And so on. So those are the external investors we are talking about. And so there is pros and cons of doing internal and externals. Let me not go too much into it because it was a simple question. So this external funding that we talked about has multiple sources. So your own friends and family may give you money as an investor, not as a lender, but as an investor to own part of your company. In fact, when I started my venture, the first round of money I took from friends and family. So they invested, I gave them a percent of the company at that time. That is how we started, right? Because they believed in whatever I wanted to build. And they said, you know what, I'll give you money and I will just own part of the company. I don't need the money back, but I think your company will grow and the value will become higher. That is the idea, right? So if not friends and family, you can also raise money from people who you don't know. There are these platforms that help you raise funds from the public. This is called crowdfunding. So you can go put your idea up on these sites and they will raise money for you, right? We'll talk about this maybe a little bit. Or there are some angels. There are some high net worth individuals who invest in startups, who invest in businesses. That is something that they do. These are called angels. So you can raise money from these people. They are professional investors, but they're investing from their own pocket. They're not investing any institution's money, right? Personal money they're investing, even in unknown companies. So that is something that you can do. Or you can go to these things called incubators and accelerators. They may also give you some funding, but there you'll have to go through some competition. And when they select, they give you some money. In fact, this Jade-Krishnamurthy event that is happening is one of those, right? So you're participating in a competition. If you win, you get some money as a funding into your company. And bank loan is something that we have already seen. I won't go into this. So the crowdfunding, there are many platforms out there. So as I mentioned, Kickstarter is one of them. Fundable is one of them. Indiegogo. You can just go to these websites, submit your idea. If many people get excited about your idea, they will put money. Somebody will say, I'll put 1 lakh. Somebody will say, I'll put 5 lakhs. And from multiple such investors, you can raise some money, right? So this is crowdfunding for you. And then there are angel investors who invest directly into companies or through platforms, right? So these platforms are something like Let's Venture, Angel List, Mumbai Angels, and so on. And all you need to do is you have to reach out to these networks and they will facilitate getting money for you. They will be able to promote your, of course you have to talk to them and they need to like your idea. They need to approve of your venture. Then you can publish it on their platform and whoever is interested in their platform will invest in your company, right? And this is pretty nice because the platforms will take care of all the paperwork about investment and all these things. You don't need to go talk to many people. You can just talk to one platform and you get money from there. And incubators, we already talked about it. So educational institutions I have mentioned here. This is one of those. And accelerators, we leave it. And then the last thing is you can raise money from real professional investors who are managing lots of money, like millions of dollars kind of money. And these are called venture capitalists, right? So they have a company, a registered company, which will raise money from multiple investors, but independently invest that money into different startups, right? So they spread it out over multiple startups over multiple years. And they give lots of money. So in terms of amount of money, venture capitalists will be able to give you lots and lots of money. So if you take a VC like SoftBank, they invest billions of dollars, or at least hundreds of millions of dollars, like huge amount of money, right? So that is the power of venture capitals, right? But to get money from them is really difficult, because they will vet you. You need to really have very good idea. You need to be able to present it very well. You need to be able to think through various scenarios and answer all kinds of questions that they have. It's very professionally run, but it's they give you more money, right? So that's the thing. So typically what happens is you will be bootstrapped, which means self-funded. That's how you start. Then you would raise money from friends and family, because it's the easiest, and they are the ones that believe in you more than strangers. Then you may go to incubators and or angels, and finally after you get over angels, you can go to VCs. Unless you are really good, if you have a great idea, you can jump straight to the VCs and take money from them. A lot of VCs fund, very, very early stage startups also. They give something called seed funding. So you can get money from VCs also. But to do that, you need to have a very high quality business idea and ability to execute, and also presentation. You need to be able to present it to them in a very professional manner. Okay. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you. But how can we approach this accelerator BC? Because if we plan as a, because we are now we are student, we are taking competition. But if in future we are planning for enter, how will go directly go to the accelerator BC? So we can
reach out. See, these days you can write to anybody, right? That is how it is. For example, when I started, I didn't know any investor. I didn't know anybody. So you just reach out to them. In fact, if you think about it, all these investors, whether it is angels or platforms, incubators or VCs, their business is to work with entrepreneurs like you. So they would love to talk to entrepreneurs. You just have to reach out to them. You have to write to them. So their websites have email addresses, phone numbers. Just reach out to them. That's it. It's as simple as that.
One more question. So in case we are reaching the with our idea, and that idea may be stolen and go to other people, and you before you start, somebody started that business. Is it this type of thing scenario will happen or not?
No, it's almost never. I wouldn't say never. There are some rare situations where such things have been reported. But typically, I covered it earlier in the talk. You should never be afraid of somebody stealing your idea, because idea is only as good as the paper it is written on, right? What is important is your depth of knowledge, your strategy, and your ability to execute. So those things are more important than the idea. In fact, I'll go so far as to say many VCs invest in founders and not necessarily the idea. Okay, so there are, most VCs, if they like the founder, they'll invest money because it's more about you. Because whatever idea you start the business with may not be what you will end up with. Right? There are millions, I shouldn't say million, there are many, many cases of how companies were started with some idea and ended up with something else. So in fact, taking Elon Musk's own story, he used to be part of a founding team of PayPal. PayPal is something, I don't know if many of you know. It was acquired by eBay. It's like a peer-to-peer payment company. So when they started out, they were doing something totally different, completely different. But it didn't work out. So they went to something else. It's called pivoting. They went to an adjacent idea, then an adjacent idea. I think it is a third or fourth idea that clicked for them. right? So when the investors gave them money, when they started the company, it was for some other idea. But that idea they decided was not worth it. Then they switched over. So this is what VCs are looking for. You need to be able to switch and be successful. So that is a quality that they are looking for, which means it is not about the idea, at least in early stages. It is about your ability to execute. Of course, in later stages, it's about the business that you have built. So for example, if you take an Ola or a Paytm or Swiggy, companies like this, now it's no longer about just the founder. It's a large enough business that a professional manager can come and run the company. But in early stages, it's more about the founder rather than the idea. So anyway, the short answer to your question is, don't worry. Nobody is going to steal your idea.
Okay. So is it expected, actually, whether I should ask or not, is it expected we should make if we are planning for anything, we make online, because everything is online. We have to develop the code and we have to show, is it only the paper idea and we have to show the area we have to cover? So I'm not, if there is if you'll go the online, then you have to do the coding, that you have to go the particular link and you have to process that way. You have to prepare the link because everything is nowadays online. So you have to first come with the website and then the idea will be there, then later will go for the website. What will be the approach?
Let me go back to my the initial slide I prepared for you. Let me just go back to that. See, this is the life cycle. The launch, when you're talking about I need to develop the website, I need to code and all those things, that happens here. Launch, right? Until then, you're the most important thing for you is to be very, very clear up to the finest level of detail about your business, about the model, about the plan and whatnot, right? So this is where you should be spending a lot of time initially, right? But as you go along, there is also something that you need to do, which is prototyping. So in fact, if let me just 1 second. I have it somewhere. See, before you raise funds, okay, here it is. This is the one I was talking about. You at least need to have some kind of validation of your idea, right? When you go to an investor and say, I need money for this idea, unless you have some pedigree, I have started this company, I have made it into $1 billion company, then without asking any question, they'll give you money because they trust your ability to execute. They trust your ability to run a business, right? Now, but if you are not, most of us are not, right? They were all first-time entrepreneurs. There is no history behind us. So what we need to do is not only show them our idea in detail in the form of a pitch deck. You need to put that together. Pitch deck comes from your business plan, the business model canvas, your competitive analysis, and all the work that you have done, right? So you need to be able to present your idea, 360-degree view of your idea for an investor to understand what you're thinking, right? And the presentation should be so powerful that they should think, oh, wow, this is a well thought out idea. And I think this will work. I think they will be able to sign up so many customers and grow it into a profitable business. That is the confidence they need to get. But most of the time, they will also want to see some kind of validation. An idea just on paper is not valued as much, right? So how do you validate it? The validation is, through, I mean, you can do 3 ways of doing it, but you need to validate it by building what is called as a POC, right? Proof of concept. So proof of concept is where you're building something, but not the real product. It is just an idea that you, just to showcase the idea. So just to give you an idea, earlier days, there was this company called Food Panda, right? They were doing food delivery. You know how they were operating initially when they were doing a proof of concept? It opened in one neighborhood in one city, and they published a phone number in those days. And when somebody calls and says, I want this food, somebody will take the order, put it in a spreadsheet, right? There is no system, nothing. And then from the spreadsheet, they will actually call or SMS a delivery guy to go pick up the food and deliver to this person. So this is called a proof of concept. I'm just showing that, people can order and I can pick up food from restaurant and deliver. I can fulfill, let's say, 10, 50, 100 transactions and show that the end-to-end process is working, right? So what this will establish is these 5 things, right? It will prove the need. It will prove that people will order food, for example. It will map the pain points to solutions. It will show that, yes, we are making it easier for them than what they're going through today. It will also allow you to get feedback, right, on whatever you're offering, get feedback from real customers. And then cover the practical details. So for example, I may be assuming that, from a restaurant to the house, it is only 2 kilometers. I should be able to cover it in 20 minutes. But maybe there is a big traffic jam there. Maybe every day there is an issue there, power cut there, or whatever it is, right? So these are the practical details that you will be able to see for yourself and cover them in your presentation to the investor, right? And you learn so much from this whole, POC process that you will be able to build a prototype from this one, right? So that is the real thing. So just to summarize, when you go for, let's say, fundraising, you need to have something. You can't go without anything. It will be very difficult to get any kind of funding. But if you have POC, they'll be able to understand what you're saying. If you're showing that I did this with 2 customers, I delivered 50 orders, then there is some value to it, right? That is POC. Or you can build this thing called prototype. Prototype is closer to the product, but not very crude like POC. In POC, you may not have built anything at all. You'll be using the existing things and somehow proved the concept. In prototype, there should be a semblance of something that you have created, right? Some product or something like that. So between these two, depending on your stage of evolution, you need to show something to the investors, but it need not be like an MVP or a complete product. That is something that they don't expect. They want to see where you're going and what you're capable of executing. Okay. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, another question you told that when somebody is doing job and he has the good income and is safe, they know that, okay, another 10 years I'm capable enough doing the job, and taking the decision for the entrepreneur, just certain age you start as a fresher, then everything is for you the learning stage. So it's like risks involved, but there is a challenging also, that how you overcome your anxiety or issues or your concern, then become thinking to become entrepreneur. Somehow somebody successful, somebody won't be successful. So then there is a failure, then you will be the depression stage. So how the somebody get motivated and say, okay, let's whatever happened, I'll do. So how you just overcome or thinking, okay, let's try that your thought on this?
Yeah, again, great question. There's no easy answer, these are things that cannot be simply taught. You have to experience it. You have to work on yourself, right? Because it's not about some skill that you can learn and just apply. This is more about your mind. It's more about how you react. It's not about just learning some external skill to produce something. It is about you managing yourself. So what I would say is there are many, of course, now compared to 5-6 years ago when I started, there are so many resources available out there, right? There are so many blogs, there are so many Medium articles, so many forums. You can just join one of those, because what you get out of these is people are sharing so much information about what they did when they went through this. How did they get over a crisis? So much is available, right? So as you read more and more about what people have gone through, and also listen to people go through more and more, you will automatically learn and you will become resilient, right? But the fundamental thing is, before you jump into this, before you take a plunge, it is important for you to ask yourself and be confident of yourself, and say, you know what, I will manage, I will take care of it. That confidence and that kind of a self-reliance is the most important thing. But once you get over that, then there are so many umpteen number of resources that you can use to get over this. In fact, entrepreneurs help each other, right? So you can cry on each other's shoulders, and when somebody says, yeah, I've been through the same thing, don't worry, it gets better, then you feel better, right? So help is there, but the key thing is for you to have that unwavering commitment to what you're setting out to do. And that is the difficult part. That I can't really give a direct answer, how to get there.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, sometime now I hear it. After I get realize, okay, this is the right approach, that is the right approach. Sometimes we also feel depressed, and we thought not to do. So if you have the positive thing, let it sometimes, okay, let's do, try it once, like that got motivated. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Lots of questions I asked. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for asking. Interactive sessions are always more fun for me, right? Yeah.
Thank
okay.
you, sir.
So anybody else, any other questions? If not, we can probably end the session a little early, because I think we have covered quite a bit of ground, and without specific feedback, it will be difficult for me to, I don't want to get into too much, because it may be overwhelming. So I'll wait for a couple of minutes. If there is any questions or feedback, comments, I'll be happy to stay. But if not, we can call it a day. Okay, so before I time out in, let's say, 2 minutes, maybe I'll just try to summarize what we have covered today, right? So it'll probably bring everything in focus. So let me just start with this slide. So when you start out as an entrepreneur, be ready for the long run. Don't be short-term oriented. Don't be an entrepreneur with money as the only aim. These are my, let's say, words of advice. And once you have these things cleared, once you're really truly excited about an idea, spend a lot of time ideating, refining your idea, questioning about your idea, really being skeptical about the idea. You need to really spend a lot of time doing ideation. And then once you have clarity on the idea, validate it with real customers, and potential, let's say, suppliers, whoever it may be, any relevant people. You just have to get it validated. Then you come to what we discussed today, which is business model. Once you have checked that, yes, it is a valid, I have a clear idea, There is no confusion about should I do this, should I do that? No, you have a very clear idea. And that idea has been validated by potential customers. Then you come to business model canvas, right? So you really refine it to the next level of detail. So we saw all these 9 blocks. So it is important for you to go from idea stage to a business model stage. Very important, because otherwise idea is too cheap. When you get into these details, it becomes very, very clear to you, because your idea may be great. You may have validated also, but when you do the business model canvas, you may decide it's not a worthwhile idea. So you may drop it, right? So it's important for you to go through this stage. Once you have done this, once you have clarity on, what my real business is, how am I going to execute it, and how am I going to make money out of it? Once you have answered these 3 questions very clearly, without any confusion, with a lot of clarity, then you take it to the next level with a business plan, right? So you convert that into a business plan. A business plan is where you put in more details, specific numbers, specific timelines, and all those things. That includes financial plan also, right? How much money do you need? You need to do the calculation and figure out, if I want to go through with this, how much money do I need? How am I going to market? Which specific channel will I use? How much will I spend on marketing? How many people will I hire for sales? All the things. How am I going to develop my product? How long will it take to develop the product? What are the risks? So put all those things together, build the business plan, right? Then once you have a business plan, from this, as part of this, you will also put together a financial plan and a prototype, right? Or a POC. And when the POC is done, then you start looking at funding, because while doing POC, you will learn yourself whether you are cut out for it, right? Maybe it's very exciting from the outside, but when you yourself get into the thick of things, then maybe you will give up, right? So that's why you need to go through this. So you do that, and then you put a pitch deck together out of your business plan, work out your finances, arrange for whatever finances you need for the initial goal. You don't worry about 5 years ka finance. You say, what, I have this short-term goal of 6 months. I want to develop this product. I want to sell it to 100 people, get the feedback, and then decide what I want to do, right? And I will do this in 6 months or 1 year, some finite amount of short period of time. Once you do that, you know how much money you need to just reach that initial goal. If you can manage it yourself, great. The easiest and best way to do it. But if you need somebody else to fund you, go figure out where to get money from and run for that limited amount of time, 6 months, 1 year, whatever it is. Once you have done that and you have the money and you reach that first stage, then you will be on autopilot, right? So that is this whole thing that I have put together here. Only when you have clarity on all these things, the first 3-4 steps, you'll go and incorporate the business, right? And then you validate it in the market. You build the real product, test it out in the market, and keep iterating. Version 1, version 2, version 3, and so on. And if needed, you will pivot. I told you about how PayPal guys pivoted. And the same thing applies to, I don't know if you know this company called Slack. It's a very popular tool now, but Slack originally started with a gaming idea. They were building a game, but it was not selling, but this chat that they were having, that worked. So they picked it up and then started this company. I mean, they pivoted the company into this communication business. So you need to do whatever it takes. Wherever the business takes you, you will go. And then you are on autopilot. Okay. So that is basically what I wanted to cover So if there is no comments, I didn't see anything. So I wish you all success. Wish you all the best with your this Jade-Krishnamurthy event. I hope to see you on the winners podium when this event gets over in the next 2-3 months. Okay, so wish you all the best. Good luck, and have a nice evening.
Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you.